Prosperity, How to Attract It, by Orison Swett Marden, Chapter 1. How we limit our supply. A man will remain a ragpicker as long as he has only a ragpicker's vision. Why go through life exhibiting the traits of an underling? If you are a real man, don't go around looking like a beggar, talking like a beggar, acting like a beggar. Only by thinking prosperity and abundance can you realize the abundant, prosperous life. Fixing limitation upon ourselves is one of the cardinal sins of mankind. Prosperity flows only through channels that are wide open to receive it. Doubt, fear, and lack of confidence close these channels. A pinched mind means a pinched, limited supply. Everything we get in life comes through the gateway of our thought. If that is pinched, stingy, mean, what flows to us will correspond. What would you think of a prince, the heir to a kingdom of limitless wealth and power, who should live in the condition of a pauper, who should go about the world bemoaning his hard fate and telling people how poor he was, saying that he didn't believe his father was going to leave him anything, and that he might as well make up his mind to a life of poverty and limitations? Yah would say, of course, that he must be insane, and that his hard conditions, his poverty and limitations were not actual, but imaginary, that they existed only in his mind, that his father was ready to load him with good things, with all that his heart desired, if he would only open his mind to the truth and live in the condition befitting a prince, the son and heir of a great king. Now, if you are living in pinching poverty in a narrow, cramped, limited environment in which there seems to be no hope, no outlook for better things, if you are not getting what you want, though working hard for it, you are just as foolish as the prince who, believing that he was poor, lived like a pauper in the midst of his father's limitless wealth. Your limitations are in your mind just as the prince's were in his. You are the child of a father who has created abundance, limitless wealth for all of his children, but your pinched, limited, poverty-stricken thought shuts you out from all this abundance and keeps you in poverty. A Russian laborer named Mihek, living in Omaha, Nebraska, had carried a luck stone in his pocket for 20 years, never guessing that it had any monetary value. Time and again friends, who thought that it might be more than an ordinary stone, suggested that he have it examined by a jeweler. He obstinately refused until, finally, they became so insistent that he sent the stone to a Chicago jeweler, who pronounced it a pigeon-blood ruby, the largest of its kind in the world. It weighed 24 carats and was worth $100,000. There are millions like this poor day laborer, living in poverty, thinking that there is nothing for them but hard work and more poverty, who, without knowing it, are carrying in the great within of themselves possibilities of wealth beyond their dreams. Their wrong thinking is robbing them of their divine inheritance, shutting off the abundant supply provided for them by the omnipotent source of all supply. The majority of people are in the position of a man who went out to water his garden, but inadvertently stepped on the hose, shutting off the water supply. He had a big hose and was very much annoyed, very much disappointed, because he was getting only a mere dribble of water when he had every right to expect and should get a liberal flow. Water was at the source in abundance, ready to supply his needs. Only one thing was at fault. The man himself was pinching his supply, limiting it to a miserable drizzle. He was standing on the hose and didn't know it. That is literally what all who are living in grinding poverty are doing. They are pinching their supply by stepping upon the hose through which plenty would come to them. They are stopping the flow of abundance that is their birthright by their doubts, their fears, their unbelief, by visualizing poverty, thinking poverty, acting as if they never expected to have anything, to accomplish anything, or to be anything. Everything in man's life, everything in God's universe is based upon principle, follows a divine law, and the law of prosperity and abundance is just as definite as the law of gravitation, just as unerring as the principles of mathematics. It is a mental law. Only by thinking abundance can you realize the abundant, prosperous life that is your birthright. In other words, according to your thought will be your life, your supply or your lack. Your mental attitude will be flung back to you every time in kind. A poverty-stricken mental attitude will bring only poverty-stricken conditions to you. We are the creatures of our convictions. We cannot get beyond what we believe we are, what we believe we have. Hence, if we think that we are never going to be strong or well like other people, or to be successful in our calling, we never will be. If we are convinced that we will always be poor, we will be. You can't get away from poverty when you don't expect to, when you don't believe that you are going to. Many of the people who are living in poverty today never really expect anything else. Their fixed belief that they can never become prosperous keeps them in poverty. That is, it keeps their minds negative, and the mind cannot create, cannot produce. In this condition, it is only the positive mind that can create prosperity. The negative mind is non-creative, non-productive. It can only tear down, inhibit, prevent the inflow of the good things that we long for. It is not so much what you do with your hands as what you do with your mind that counts. Everything that has been accomplished by the hand or brain of man had its birth in the mind. The universe itself is the creation of divine mind. A hard-working man who longs for prosperity but is headed in the other direction mentally, who doesn't believe he is going to be prosperous, is neutralizing his hard work by his negative, destructive thought. He is standing on the hose that connects with his supply. When you limit yourself in your thought, you are limiting yourself outwardly in a way which corresponds with your mental attitude. Because you are obeying a law which is unchangeable, you will notice that the man who puts a nickel in the contribution box is not only stingy, close, and mean in all his money matters, but his face, his whole person, has a cramped, worried, pinched look. He is forever saving pennies, watching out for little things and never doing big things. No matter how much natural ability he has, his narrow, limited poverty thought dwarfs him and cuts off his stream of supply. He cannot do big things because he never thinks big things. His warped mind will admit only a pinch supply instead of the big flow that is literally at his command. It is because we have not learned how to use our thought forces that most of us go about like paupers, never glimpsing the marvelous inheritance left us by the all-supply, the all-good. Our parsimonious thought pinches our supply. We often wonder why it is that certain people, in apparently no better circumstances than we are, get so much better things than we do, why they always insist upon and receive the best of everything. We never see them wearing cheap things, never see cheap things in their homes or any pinching anywhere. They buy the best food, the best fruits and vegetables in the market, and everything else in accordance. We think they are extravagant when we compare what they pay for things with what we pay for things of the same kind, and we pride ourselves that we are economizing and saving what they are wasting. But are we? How does our manner of living compare with theirs? Does the enjoyment we get out of life measure up to what they get? Do the few dollars we save compensate for the great lack in our lives, the lack of good food, of proper clothing, of the little pleasure trips, the social enjoyments, the picnics, and various diversions which make life pleasant, healthful, and, above all, much more productive for the neighbors whose extravagance we condemn? As a matter of fact, our skimped, pinching policy leaves us poorer in the end. Prosperity flows only through channels that are wide open to receive it. It does not flow through channels pinched by the poverty thought, by discouragement, doubt, or fear, or by a strangling narrow-vision policy. A generous expenditure is often the wisest economy, the only thing that brings a generous success. If a great manufacturer like Henry Ford, a great merchant like John Wanamaker, a big railroad manager, or other businessman should lose his broad vision and wide outlook, should begin to skimp on necessary output, should substitute inferior goods and men and service for the best, should reverse his policy, changing from a broad, generous one to a narrow, stingy one, he would soon find his business dwindling away to nothing. There is no changing the principle of the law of supply, whatever your business, your profession or occupation, or your circumstances. Your mental attitude will determine your success or failure. A pinched mind means a pinched supply. It means that you try to tap the great fountainhead of supply with a gimlet and then expect to get an abundant supply. That is impossible. Your mental attitude gauges the how of your supply. Chapter to the law of attraction. By the law of affinity you may know that your own is always seeking you if you are seeking it with all your might and are not driving it away with your doubts. John Burroughs thus beautifully expressed this: I rave no more gainst time or fate, for lo, my own shall come to me. Asleep, awake, by night or day, the friends I seek are seeking me. What matter if I stand alone? I wait with joy the coming years. My heart shall reap where it hath sown. What is mine shall know my face, nor time, nor space, nor deep, nor I can keep my own away from me. It was never intended that God's children should ever want for anything. We live in the very lap of abundance. There is plenty of everything all about us. The great cosmic universe is packed with all sorts of beautiful, marvelous things, glorious riches, ready for our use and enjoyment. Everything the human heart can crave, the great creative intelligence offers us. We can draw from this vast ocean of intelligence everything we wish. All that it is necessary for us to do is to obey the law of attraction. Like attracts like. To realize prosperity and abundance does not depend upon man's own little brain, his own little one-sided efforts. It is a question of his making his mind a magnet to attract the things he wants, to attract his desires. Everything that the race enjoys has been attracted out of the great ocean of intelligence AC, according to a law. All inventions, all discoveries, all the marvelous facilities of civilization, our hospitals, our schools, our churches, our libraries and other institutions, our homes with their comforts and luxuries, have all been attracted from this great cosmic storehouse of intelligence by the same law. It was intended that our longings, our yearnings, our legitimate desires should be satisfied that our dreams should come true. It is our ignorance of the law that would bring our own to us which keeps it from us. When you were a boy experimenting with your little steel magnet, didn't you often try to make it take up wood, copper, rubber, or some other substance different from itself? And, of course, you found it would not, because it had no affinity for things that were unlike itself. You found that it would pick up a needle, but not a toothpick. In other words, you demonstrated the law that like attracts like. Not a day passes that we do not see this law demonstrated in different ways in human life. Sometimes the demonstrations are very tragic. Only a short time ago, a little 8-year-old girl, the daughter of a Pennsylvania farmer, died from fright in a dentist's chair, where she had been placed to have a tooth extracted. Although the child knew nothing about the law, it worked just the same, and, like Job, the thing she feared had come to her by the operation of the same law that draws to us disease and death. We draw to ourselves poverty or opulence, success or failure. The mind at any given time is a magnet for something. It is a magnet for whatever thought, whatever convictions dominate the mind at the time. And the blessed, glorious thing about it all is that we can determine what the mind shall attract, what sort of a magnet it shall become. Now you may attract to you that which is not good for you, that which will damn you, that which will pain and humiliate. By concentrating upon and working for it, you become a specialist in that line, and the law of attraction brings it to you. If you have a prosperity mental attitude, if you have a vigorous faith that you are going to get away from poverty, that you are going to demonstrate prosperity, abundance, and strive intelligently and persistently to realize your vision, you will do so. That's the law. If you obey the law, you will get good results. If we could only see a picture of the mental processes of whatever is held in the mind, pulling the things which correspond to our thought. If we could see more failure, more bad business, more debts, more losses starting towards us because we have contacted with these things in our thought, we would quit worrying about the things we don't want and think the things we do want, attracting more instead of less, attracting abundance instead of poverty, prosperity instead of failure. Oh, how often we make our mind a magnet to attract all sorts of enemy thoughts, poverty thoughts, sick thoughts, fear thoughts, and worry thoughts. And then somehow we expect that a miracle will be performed, and that out of these negative causes we will be sure in some way to enjoy positive results. No miracle could perform such a change as this. Results correspond with causes. Before we can be conquered by poverty, we must, first of all, be poor mentally. The poverty thought, the acceptance of a poverty-stricken environment as an inevitable condition from which you cannot get away, keeps you in the poverty current and draws more poverty to you. It is the operation of the same law which attracts good things, a better environment, to those who think abundance, prosperity, who are convinced that they are going to be well off, and work confidently, hopefully, toward that end, not the things we long for most, not the things we wish for, but our own, that which has lived in our thoughts and mind, dominated in our mentality and our mental attitude. That is what the law of attraction brings to us. It may be that this law has brought us the very things we hated and wanted to get rid of, but we have dwelt upon them, and because they form the mental model, the life processes built them into our lives. The law of attraction often brings us hated bedfellows, but they have lived so long in our minds that they must become a part of our lives by the very law that like attracts like. Until recently, many of us did not understand what Job meant when he said, "The thing which I greatly feared has come upon me." Now we know that he expressed a psychological law that is as inexorable as the laws of mathematics. We know that the things we fear most, the things we have a horror of and want to flee from, we are really pursuing by our very fear of them, by predicting them and visualizing them in our minds. We are attracting them to ourselves, and when we do this, we are turning our backs upon the very things which we long for most. The time will come when the law of attraction will be known as the greatest power in creation. This is the law upon which all successes, all characters, all lives are built. Mental attraction is the only power upon which we can build anything successfully. It is an inevitable law, an inexorable principle, that everything attracts to itself everything else like itself, that all affinities tend to get together, and when you make your mind a magnet, it will attract according to its quality, according to your mental vision, your thoughts, your motives, your dominant attitude. The saying money attracts money is only another way of stating the law, like attracts like. The prosperous classes think prosperity, believe in it, work for it, never for a moment doubt their right to have all the money and all the good things they need, and of course they get them. They are living up to the very letter and spirit of the law of attraction. A Rockefeller, a Schwab, uses this law in a masterly way to amass a large fortune. The newsboy uses the same law in selling his newspapers, running a newsstand, and climbing gradually to the mayoralty of his city or town. We all use this law of attraction, no matter whether we know it or not. We use it every instant of our lives. Many people wonder that bad men, wicked men, vicious men are successful in business, at money-making, and amassing a fortune, while the good man, the upright man, doesn't seem to be able to make any headway. They haven't the knack of accumulation in the way of making money. Good things do not seem to come to them. If they make an investment, they almost always lose. They buy in the wrong market or sell in the wrong market. Now, a man's morals do not have anything specially to do with his money-making faculties, except that honesty is always and everywhere the best business policy. It is just a question of obeying the law of accumulation, the law that like attracts like. A very bad man may obey the law of accumulation, the law of attraction, and accumulate a vast fortune. If he is honest, his other defects and immoralities, his viciousness, will not hinder the working of the law. The law is unmoral. It is neither moral nor immoral. Multitudes of people are attracting the wrong things because they do not know the law. They have never learned that the great secret of health, happiness, and success lies in holding the mental attitude which builds, which constructs, the mental attitude which draws to us the good things we desire. They have never learned the difference between building and tearing down thoughts, the difference between success and failure thoughts. In fact, they do not know that whatever comes to us in life, in our undertakings, great or small, is largely a question of the kind of thoughts we hold in the mind. We can attract the thing we desire as easily as we can attract the thing we hate and despise and long to get rid of. It is simply a matter of holding the image of the thing in the mind. That is the model which the life processes will build into our environment and which we will objectify. Like attracts like. Failure more failure, poverty more poverty, hatred attracts more hatred, envy more envy, jealousy more jealousy, and malice more malice. Everything has power to attract its kind. The feeling of jealousy or hatred is a seed sown in the great cosmic soil all about us, and the eternal laws return to us a harvest the same in kind. What we sow we reap, just as the soil will return to us exactly what we put into it. Nothing has the power to reproduce anything but itself. There is no exception to this law. The law cannot pity or help you if you break a bone or are injured, any more than the law of electricity can help you when you abuse it. It will kill you if you break the law. To think about and worry about the things we do not want or to fear that they will come to us is but to invite them, because every impression becomes an expression, or tends to become so unless the impression is neutralized by its opposite. If we think too much about our losses, too much about our possible failure, all these things will tend to bring to us the very thing we are trying to get away from. On every hand we see this law of like attracting like exemplified in the lives of the poverty-stricken multitudes who, through ignorance of the law, keep themselves in their unfortunate condition by saturating their minds with the poverty idea, thinking and acting and talking poverty, living in the belief in its permanency, fearing, dreading, and worrying about it. They do not realize, no one has ever told them, that as long as people mentally see the hunger wolf at the door and the poorhouse ahead of them, as long as they expect nothing but lack and poverty and hard conditions, they are headed toward these things. They are making it impossible for prosperity to come in their direction. The way to attract prosperity and drive poverty out of the life is to work in harmony with the law instead of against it, to expect prosperity, to believe with all your heart, no matter how present conditions may seem to contradict, that you are going to become prosperous, that you are already so, is the very first condition of the law of attaining what you desire. You cannot get it by doubting or fearing. Whatever we visualize and work for, we will get. What we most frequently visualize, what we think most about, is constantly weaving itself into the fabric of our lives, becoming a part of ourselves, increasing the power of our mental magnet to attract those things to us. It doesn't matter whether they are things we fear and try to avoid, or things that are good for us, that we long to get. Keeping them in mind increases our affinity for them and inevitably tends to bring them into our lives. It is a curious fact that many people seem to think that one must spend years as an apprentice to become an expert in any line of endeavor, in business or in a profession, but that in regard to prosperity is largely a matter of chance, of fate, something which cannot be affected very much by anything they may be able to do. They say, well, I was not built that way, I am not a natural money-maker, and never can be. Or they excuse themselves on the ground that their parents and those before them were never money-makers, and never did anything more than make a bare living. There is nothing at all peculiar about prosperity any more than there is about legal efficiency or expertness in law or medicine. Its realization is purely a matter of concentration and of preparation, a matter of focusing all our powers upon the prosperity law in order to attract prosperity and to make ourselves expert in attaining it. The law of prosperity, of opulence, is just as definite as the law of gravitation, and it works just as unerringly. Its first principle is mental. Wealth is created mentally first. It is thought out before it becomes a reality. if you would attract success. Keep your mind saturated with the success idea. Develop an attitude of mind that will attract success when you think success, when you act it, when you live it, when you talk it, when it is in your bearing, then you are attracting it. When we once get this law of attraction thoroughly fixed in our minds, we will be careful about attracting our enemies, contacting with them through our mind, thinking about them, worrying about them, fearing and dreading them. We will hold the sort of thoughts that will attract the things we long for and are seeking, not the things we dread and despise and are trying to avoid. It is just as easy to attract what you want as to attract what you don't want. It is just a question of holding the right thought and making the right effort. There is no exception to the law of attraction, any more than there is to the law of gravitation or the laws of mathematics. Chapter 3, Driving Away Prosperity. As long as you hold the poorhouse thought you are heading toward. The poorhouse, a pinch, stingy thought means a pinched, stingy supply. The man who sows failure thoughts, poverty thoughts, can no more reap success, prosperity harvests, than a farmer can get a wheat crop from sowing thistles. No matter how hard you may work, if you keep your mind saturated with poverty thoughts, poverty pictures, you are driving away the very thing you are pursuing. Stop thinking trouble if you want to attract its opposite. Stop thinking poverty if you wish to attract plenty. Refuse to have anything to do with the things you fear, the things you do not want. It is doubting and facing the wrong way, facing towards the black, depressing, hopeless outlook that kills effort and paralyzes ambition. A man once told me that if he could be assured that he would never have to go to the poorhouse and that he would have the necessities of life for his family, he would be perfectly satisfied. He said it was evidently not intended that he should have luxuries or anything more than a bare living. He had always been a poor man, and he always expected to be poor. That his people before him had also been poor. Nah, it was just this mental attitude, for he was a hard worker, of always expecting to be poor, believing he would always be poor, that kept him from attracting prosperity. He had not expected prosperity and, of course, could not attract what he did not expect. He only just managed to get along, for that was all he expected to do. One of the chief reasons why the great mass of human beings live such mean, stingy, poverty-stricken lives is because their negative mental attitudes, their doubts and fears and worries, their lack of faith attract these conditions. The good book tells us that the destruction of the poor is their poverty. That is, their poverty thought, their poverty conviction, their poverty expectation, and poverty belief. Their general hopeless mental outlook keeps away prosperity. The worst thing about poverty is the poverty thought, the poverty belief. Multitudes of people never expect to be comfortable, to say nothing of having the luxuries and refinements of life. They expect poverty, and they do not understand that this very expectancy increases the power of their mental magnet to attract wanton limitation, even though they are trying to get away from it. That we always head towards our expectations and convictions. Poverty begins in the mind. The majority of poor people remain poor because they are mental paupers to begin with. They don't believe they are ever going to be prosperous. Fate and conditions are against them. They were born poor, and they expect always to be poor. That is their unvarying trend of thought. Their fixed conviction. Go among the very poor in the slums, and you will find them always talking poverty, bewailing their fate, their hard luck, the cruelty and injustice of society. They will tell you how they are ground down by the upper classes, kept down by their greedy employers, or by an unjust order of things which they can't change. They think of themselves as victims instead of victors, as conquered instead of conquerors. The great trouble with most people who fail to realize their ambition is that they face life the wrong way. They do not understand the tremendous potency of the influence of the habitual mental attitude in shaping the career and actually creating conditions. It is really pitiful to see people making slaves of themselves trying to get ahead, but all the time sidetracking the good things which would come their way if they did not head them off by their conviction that there is nothing much in the world for them anyway, nothing more than a bare living at the best. They are actually driving away the very things which might flow to them in abundance if they held the right mental attitude. In every walk of life we see men and women driving away the things they want. Most people think the things they do not want. They go through life trying to build happy, prosperous, healthful lives out of negative, destructive thinking, always neutralizing the results of their hard work. They indulge in worries and fears and envies, and thoughts of hatred and revenge, and carry habitually a mental attitude, which means destruction to health, growth, and creative possibility. Their lives are pitched to a minor key. There is always a downward tendency in their thought and conversation. 9/10 of the people in the world who complain of being poor and failures are headed in the wrong direction, headed right away from the condition or thing they long for. What they need is to be turned about so that they will face their goal instead of turning their backs on it by their destructive thinking and going in the other direction. The Morgans, the Wanamakers, the Marshall Fields, the Schwabs think prosperity, and they get it. They don't anticipate poverty. They don't anticipate failure. They know they are going to be prosperous and successful because they have eliminated all doubt from their minds. Doubt is the factor which kills success. Just as the fear of failure kills prosperity, everything is mental first. Whether failure or success, everything passes through our consciousness before it is a reality. Multitudes of people who work hard and try hard in every way to get on would be shocked if they could see a mental picture of themselves headed toward the poorhouse, in fact, as they actually are in thought. They do not know that, by an inexorable law, they must head toward their mental attitude, that when they continually think and talk poverty and suggest it by their slovenly dress, their personal appearance, and by their environment, when they predict that there is nothing for them but poverty, that they will always be poor, no matter how hard they may work. They do not know that their doubts and fears and poverty-stricken convictions are making prosperity impossible for them. They do not know that as long as they hold such thoughts, they cannot possibly head toward the goal of prosperity. The sum total of our life is that upon which we have concentrated. If poverty or opulence, if success or failure, if prosperity or want has occupied our minds, if we have focused our attention upon one of these, that is just what we shall see incorporated in our life. What you have, my friend, what you have surrounded yourself with, is a reproduction of your thought, your faith, your belief, and your efforts, is what you have been conscious of. Our thoughts, our faith, our beliefs, our efforts, all materialize and are objectified about us. Our words become flesh and live with us. Our thoughts, our emotions, also become flesh and live with us. They become our environment and surround us. There is only one way to get away from poverty, and that is to turn your back upon it. Begin right away by putting the poverty thought, the poverty fear, out of your mind. Assume as far as possible a prosperous appearance. Think the way you want to go. Expect to get what you are after, the thing you long for, and you will get it mentally and physically in your clothing, in your surroundings, in your home, in your bearing. Erase as far as you can all marks of poverty. Affirm with Walt Whitman, I myself am good fortune. Don't let slovenliness in your home, shabbiness in your children or wife, be an unfavorable advertisement of you. The fear of poverty is its greatest power. That is what gives it its stranglehold on the masses. Get rid of your fear of it, my friend. Let the prosperity thought take the place of the poverty thought, the poverty fear in your mind. If you have been unfortunate, don't advertise your discouragement. Brush up, brace up, dress up, clean up, and above all, look up and think up. Give an uplook to your home, however humble. Remember that a stream of plenty will not flow towards a poverty-saturated thought. A pinched, stingy thought means scanty supply, thinking abundance, opulence, and defying. Limitations will open up the mind and set the thought currents towards greatly increased supply. If all the poverty-stricken people in the world today would quit thinking poverty, quit dwelling on it, worrying about it, and fearing it, if they would wipe the poverty thought out of their minds, if they would cut off mentally all relations with poverty and substitute the opulent thought, the prosperity thought, the mental attitude that faces toward prosperity, the change in their condition would be amazing. The Creator never made a man to be poor. There is nothing in his constitution which fits drudgery and poverty. Man was made for prosperity, happiness, and success. He was not made to suffer any more than he was made to be insane or to be a criminal. Thousands of people have literally thought themselves away from a life of poverty by getting a glimpse of that great fundamental principle that we tend to realize in the life, what we persistently hold in the thought and vigorously struggle toward. Don't think that by holding the constructive, creative thought only now and then, or just when you may happen to feel like it, that it is going to counteract the influence of holding the destructive thought most of the time. Lots of people who treat for prosperity and opulence hold the want thought, the lack thought too, and that is the reason their prayer is not answered. They get just the opposite, because that is the thought, the expectation which predominates in the mind. Our conviction is much stronger than our willpower. No willpower can help you to do a thing when convinced that you can't. For instance, if you are convinced that a fatal disease which you believe you have inherited is overcoming you, this thought is infinitely stronger than your will to prevent it. We cannot get away from our convictions. These are being built into the mind, being built into the life and character. If you are convinced that you are going to be poor, that you are never going to be prosperous, no matter how hard you may work, your convictions will triumph, and you will live and die in penury. A man will never be anything but a beggar while he thinks beggarly thoughts. If you are living in the thought of limitation, the conviction of lack and want, the fear of poverty, the belief that you can never become prosperous, you are holding yourself down, keeping yourself back. You are sowing seed which must produce a harvest like itself. The boy who sows his wild oats seed might as well expect to get just the opposite harvest as for you to saturate your mind with poverty thoughts, lack, want, limitation thoughts, and expect a prosperity harvest. If you are thinking poverty-stricken thoughts, saturating your mind with limitation thoughts, you must expect a corresponding harvest, and you will get it whether you expect it or not. In my youth, one of the hardest things in the Bible for me to understand was the statement, "To him that hath shall be given." I couldn't reconcile this with the Bible. It seemed positively unjust, but now I know that it illustrates a law. To him that hath shall be given, because in getting what he as a man has made his mind a magnet to attract more. On the other hand, to him that hath little, that which he hath shall be taken away, because he is headed in the wrong direction mentally. He is closing the avenues of supply by his little thoughts, his doubts and fears. He is in no mental condition to get more, to attract more. If you want to demonstrate prosperity, you must think prosperity. You must hold your mind everlastingly toward prosperity. You must saturate your mind with it, just as a law student must saturate his mind with law, must think it, must read it, must talk it, must keep with lawyers and in a law atmosphere as much as possible. To be successful as a lawyer, it was intended that we should have an abundance of the good things of the universe. None of them are withheld from us except by our poverty-stricken mental attitude. There is no more possible lack for a human being of all that the heart can wish for than there is lack of water or food supply for the fish in the great ocean. The fish swims in the ocean of supply, as we swim in the great cosmic ocean of supply that is all round us. All we have to do is to open our minds, our faith, our confidence to its reality, and use our intelligent effort to get all the good there is in it. That is everything we need and desire. Chapter 4, Establishing the Creative Consciousness. The beginning of every achievement must be in your consciousness. We have unlimited power, boundless resources in the great within of us. But until we awaken to a consciousness of this hidden power, those invisible resources, we cannot use them. The consciousness of power creates power. What we are conscious of, we already possess, in proportion to the intensity, the persistence, the vividness, the delightness of your consciousness of the thing you want. Do you begin to create it, to attract it? The Creator puts no limit to our supply. There is no limitation on anything we need except in our own consciousness. The great trouble with those of us who are living in a world of unfulfilled desires and ambitions is that we do not hold the right consciousness. Dr. Perry Green rightly says that Job's lament, "The thing which I feared is come upon me," should be changed to "The thing which I was greatly conscious of is come upon me." In other words, it is the thing we hold in our consciousness that comes out of the invisible world of realities and takes visible form in our lives according to its nature, poverty or prosperity, health or disease, happiness or misery. The whole secret of individual growth and development is locked up in our consciousness, for this is the door of life itself. Every experience, whether of joy or sorrow, of health or disease, of success or failure, must come through our consciousness. There is no other way by which it can enter and become a part of the life. You cannot have what you are not conscious of. You cannot do what you are not conscious of being able to do. In short, it is an immutable law that whatever you hold in mind, believe that you can do or get, is the thing that will manifest itself in your life. The thing that Job held in his consciousness was the thing that came upon him. Joan of Arc saved her country because from childhood she held the consciousness that she had been born to do that very thing. This poor unlettered peasant girl knew nothing about the great law of mental attraction, but unconsciously she worked with it. But for her consciousness of victory, she never could have accomplished her stupendous work. It is the victorious consciousness that achieves victory in every age and in every field. After many years' study of the lives and methods of successful men in every department of life, I have found that those who win out in a large way are great believers in themselves, in their power to succeed in the things they undertake. Great artists, scientists, inventors, explorers, generals, businessmen, and others who have done the biggest things in their specialty have always held the victorious consciousness. Success was the goal they constantly visualized, and they never wavered in their conviction that they would reach it. Men fail, not because of lack of ability, but because they do not hold the victorious consciousness, the success consciousness. They do not live in the expectancy of winning, in the belief that they will succeed in reaching the goal of their ambitions. They live rather in the expectation of possible failure, in fear of poverty and coming to want, and they get what they hold in mind, what they habitually dwell upon, the pinched, narrow, limited, poverty-stricken, fear-filled consciousness, the consciousness that expects stingy returns, that expects poverty, and does not believe it will get anything better, is responsible for more poverty than any other one thing. Our consciousness is a part of our creative force. That is, it puts the mentality in a position to attract its affinity, that which is like itself. A penury consciousness cannot demonstrate a fortune. A failure consciousness cannot demonstrate success. It would be against the law. If you are steeped in poverty and failure, you have no one to blame but yourself, for you are working against the law. You are holding the poverty consciousness, living in the thought of failure. Perhaps you are wondering why you can't create something that will match your ambition, your longings, when all the time you are filling your mind so full of discouragement, so full of black, gloomy, despairing pictures, that your whole life is saturated with the failure consciousness. You feel, perhaps, that something, some invisible force, some cruel fate or destiny is holding you back. Something is holding you back, but it is not fate or destiny. It is your discouraged mental attitude, the unfortunate consciousness that you have been holding for years. While you were trying to build on the material plane, you were neutralizing all your efforts by constantly tearing down on the mental plane. You have been obeying the negative law which destroys and kills, blights and blasts, instead of the positive law that produces, that creates, builds, beautifies, develops man's godlike qualities, and glorifies his life. All of life and its achievements, its possibilities, depend upon our consciousness, and we can develop any sort of consciousness we wish. The great musician has developed a musical consciousness of which most of us are ignorant, because we are not conscious of this mode of activity. Our musical consciousness has not been developed. The mathematician, the astronomer, the writer, the physician, the artist, the specialist in whatsoever line, has developed a particular consciousness, and he realizes the fruits of that consciousness. He manifests and he enjoys a special power just in proportion as he has developed his specialty. Consciousness. What sort of consciousness do you want to develop? What do you want to get, to do, to become? Make yourself very positive on this point, for the first step toward the development of a new consciousness is to get a thorough grip upon your purpose, your desire, your aim, to get a picture of it firmly fixed in your mind, to make it dominant in your thoughts and your acts and your life. This is how the successful lawyer at the start develops a law consciousness, the successful physician a medical consciousness, the successful businessman a business consciousness. It is of the utmost importance to get started right, because whatever the consciousness you develop, your mind will attract. That which has an affinity for it will draw to you the material for your building. The next thing is to establish the conviction that you can achieve whatever you desire. This is a tremendous step in the way of accomplishment, for conviction is stronger than willpower. That is, you may will ever so hard to do a thing, but if you are convinced that you can't do it, the conviction of your inability will prevail over your willpower. Your conviction is your strongest lever of accomplishment. This is what has enabled so many poor boys and girls to climb to high place and power in spite of all sorts of obstacles, and often contrary to the opinion and advice of those who knew them best. They were so thoroughly conscious of their ability to do the thing they wanted to do, and so convinced that they could do it, that nothing could hold them back from their own. The beginning of every achievement must be in your consciousness. That is the starting point of your creative plan, in proportion to the intensity, the persistence, the vividness, the definiteness of your consciousness of the thing you want. You begin to create in any line. For instance, consciousness of power reveals power. The consciousness of supremacy is equivalent to supremacy itself. The consciousness of self-confidence is what gives us the assurance that we are equal to the thing we undertake. What we are conscious of, we already possess, but we cannot come into possession of anything we are not conscious of. That is, it cannot be ours until we become conscious of it. If you are not conscious of the ability to succeed, you can't succeed. If you are not conscious of your own superiority, you cannot become superior. But if you hold in your consciousness the picture of masterfulness, if you hold in mind the thought of superiority, you are putting in operation little law of mastership, a little law of superiority, and you begin to manifest these things in your life. We have unlimited power, boundless resources in the great within of us, but until we awaken to a consciousness of this hidden power, those invisible resources, we cannot use them. Some time ago a friend of mine saw a small, delicate woman leap over a 6-bar gate when frightened by the sudden approach of a cow which she mistook for a bull. He said that this woman told him she could no more have done this under ordinary conditions than she could have lifted a corner of her house from its foundations, but she thought her life was in peril, and in her great extremity she became for a moment conscious of the power within, seeing the cow running toward her, and imagining that it was an angry bull. She had no time to allow her doubts and fears as to whether she could leap over the gate to control her. It was the only means of escape in sight, and with the aroused consciousness of the latent power within her, she cleared the gate without difficulty. But when the imagined danger was past, she lost the consciousness of her hidden strength and relapsed into her ordinary condition of weakness. There are numerous instances on record where invalids and cripples, people who had been paralyzed for years, who did not feel that they could do anything whatever, have risen up from their beds when a fire or some terrible accident endangered their own lives or the lives of those dear to them, and then and there perform marvelous feats in carrying heavy furniture out of a burning house, rescuing children, and doing other things that would have seemed miraculous even for strong men. Again and again, unusual emergencies give us a fleeting consciousness of our vast reserve powers, and we perform prodigies that amaze ourselves, but we don't continue to make the demand on them, and the consciousness that it is possible for us to do anything out of the ordinary slips from us, and our measureless resources remain untouched. Emerson says, "Every soul is not only the inlet, but may become the outlet of all that is in God." The consciousness of this great truth is the secret of all power. It is the full realization of our connection with omnipotence, with omniscience, with the source of all there is, that enables us to use the vast powers that are within us, always at our command, waiting to accomplish our ends. The Creator puts no limit to our supply. There is no limitation of anything we need except in our own consciousness. That is the door which, according to its quality, shuts us off from or admits us to the great storehouse of infinite supply. The pinched, stingy consciousness never gets in touch with this supply. It is the man who has faith in his own power to meet whatever demands life may make upon him, who spends his last dollar fearlessly because he knows the law of supply and is in touch with the flow of abundance that gets on and up in the world. But the one who hoards his last dollar in fear and trembling, afraid to let go of it, even though he must go hungry, who always carries in his mind a vivid picture of the wolf at the door, never conquers poverty, because he never gets the prosperity consciousness. A wonderful uplift and courage comes to the man who follows the aspiring tendency in his nature that bids him trust and look up, no matter how dark the outlook. Faith in the power that orders all things well tells him that there is a silver lining to the black cloud which temporarily shuts out the light, and he goes serenely on, feeling confident that his plans will succeed, that his demands will be met. His is the consciousness that assures him, no matter what happens, that God's in his heaven, all's right with the world. If you keep this one thing in mind, that we are always creating, always manifesting in our lives the conditions we hold in our consciousness, you will not make the mistake millions are making today, manifesting the things they don't want instead of the things they want. When we realize that our enjoyment, our happiness, our satisfaction, our achievement, our power, our personality, all depend on the nature of our consciousness, the aim and direction in which it is unfolding, we will not deliberately build up a consciousness of the very opposite of all that we are struggling to attain. On the contrary, we will hold constantly in mind the consciousness of our ambition, whatever it is. We will build up the consciousness of our heart's longings, our soul's desires. We will hold the truth consciousness, the God consciousness, the harmony consciousness, and the opulent consciousness, and then we shall really begin to live. Then life will mean something more to all of us than it now does to most of us, a mere struggle for existence. Chapter 5. Where prosperity begins, whatever we visualize intensely and persistently and back. By intelligent effort we tend to create, vitalize into form, to build into the life. It is in the unseen world that man, animated and inspired by the consciousness of his partnership with divinity, is beginning to find some of the secrets of the universe, lifting the race from animalism and drudgery, changing the face of the world, pushing civilization up to new and more glorious heights. limitless wealth, inexhaustible supply to meet our needs, undreamed of possibilities are in the great cosmic intelligence waiting the contact of man's thought to bring them into visible form. The invisible world about us is packed with infinite possibilities, awaiting our thought seed, our desire seed, our ambition seed, our aspiration seed, our prosperity and success seed, backed by our effort on the material plane to make them manifest in the forms upon which we concentrate. There is no lack of anything we need on God's earth any more than there is a lack of sunshine. Who would think of complaining that the sun refuses to shine on him, that its rays will not rest upon him, will not bring his crops to maturity, will not warm and cheer his life? There is no lack of sunshine, but we can cut ourselves off from it if we choose to live in the shadows. If we go down into the dark cellar where the sun cannot enter, it is our own fault. During his lecture tour in the United States, the great scientist, Sir Oliver Lodge, speaking on the reality of the unseen, said, "Our senses are no criterion of existence. They were evolved for earthly reasons, not for purposes of philosophy, and if we refuse to go beyond the direct evidence of our senses, we shall narrow our outlook on the universe to a hopeless and almost imbecile extent. It is the most difficult thing in the world to convince people of the reality of anything they cannot perceive through the senses. Yet the realest things we know anything about are invisible, have never been seen by mortal eyes, and right here lies the great difficulty for most people in changing undesirable conditions and getting away from poverty and the things that are holding them back. They can't see beyond the present. They haven't learned to visualize the future, to see beyond the material things about them into the unseen world, packed with all creative energies, where the mind starts the creative processes. They do not realize that everything in the visible world that man has produced began in a mental vision, that the power of mind picturing, of visualizing the things we want to come into our lives, is God's priceless gift to man, to enable him to bring into visibility out of the invisible world whatever he wills. Anyone who knows how to use this marvelous power can begin now to visualize his future, to see himself as he would like to be, to see himself mentally doing the things he would like to do, occupying the position he aspires to, and thus he will draw to himself the means necessary to build, step by step, in the material world, the future as he sees it in his vision. By its aid, we can bring ourselves out of a poverty-stricken, discordant environment into harmonious conditions, a harmonious environment with the refinements and, if we will, the luxuries of life, or we may pervert it and hold ourselves in degrading lack and poverty, limited, held back from self-development, the unfoldment of our possibilities, and all the joys of living. Whatever we visualize intensely and persistently we create, vitalize into form, build into the life, bring into the actual, in other words, the vital substance from which man fashions circumstances. Destiny is in the unseen world where all potencies and power dwell, the very foundations of the universe, and the things which are doing most for the world today are the unseen forces, eternal principles, the forces which transport us over the globe and bring its uttermost parts into instant communion, the power of the principles of chemistry, of gravitation, of cohesion, of adhesion, all the mighty agencies operating in the universe and producing its phenomena. We cannot see, hear, or touch. We cannot appreciate them with our senses only as we feel their effects. They are things we know little about, yet we know they are great realities. Who knows or who has seen what is back of these great principles? These potencies which we know exist, gravitation, which is holding the heavenly bodies in their orbits, which keeps the world so marvelously balanced in space, revolving at terrific speed around the sun, none of them varying in their revolutions in their orbits the fraction of a second in 1,000 years, is an invisible force, because we can't see or taste or smell or handle it. Shall we say it is not a reality, that it does not exist? We can see and feel the effects of electricity, but who knows what this invisible force is? The Edisons, the Bells, the Marconis have, through experiments, found out certain things, certain laws governing it, through the operation of which we get heat, energy, and light. They have put it to work for us in a multitude of ways. It carries our messages under oceans and across continents. It has already done away with a large part of the drudgery of the world, and is destined to serve mankind in ways perhaps not yet dreamed of by even the wisest scientists and inventors. This mighty force which he has used in his thousands of inventions, Edison confesses he knows nothing about. He stands in awe of this mysterious power which has come out of the cosmic intelligence in response to his efforts. He regards himself merely as a channel through which some of its secrets have been passed along to man to make life less toilsome, more comfortable, and more beautiful. It is nonsense for skeptics and materialists to say that they take no stock in anything that they cannot test with their senses, when we know that the real force in the very things we live on, the elements that nourish and keep alive even the material part of us, are all invisible. We cannot see the life-building, life-sustaining gases in the air we breathe. We cannot see the air, yet we take it into our body 18 or 20 times a minute and get the silent, unseen power resident in it. The blood absorbs and sends it to the billions of cells in our bodies. None of its mysterious potency can we see or handle, yet we know we could not live a minute without it. No one has ever seen the force in the food we eat, but we know it is there, that we get strength from it, and that after a time the apparently dead, inert matter comes to life in the body, that it acts, dreams, has experiences, works, creates. Notwithstanding all its marvelous discoveries, science has not been able to uncover the secrets of the unseen forces everywhere at work in the universe. Who can see or explain the mystery of the unfolding bud, the expanding flower, the generating of the wonderful fragrance and marvelous beauty of the rose? Yet we know that there is reality back of them, an intelligence which plans and shapes them, brings them to their glorious maturity. We know that all these things come from the same omnipotent source, that they are the creations of divine mind. Scientists are demonstrating that there is but one substance, one eternal force or essence in the universe, and that all we see is a varying expression of it. To the senses, this universal substance, which is the great reality back of all we see, is non-existent. We can neither see, nor touch, nor taste, nor smell it. Yet all the time science is piling up proof after proof that everything about us is merely a modification, a change of form, change of vibration of this universal substance, just as electricity is a manifestation of force in various forms. We think we live in a material world, but in reality we live in a mental world, a world of externalized thought, a world controlled and guided by invisible forces. We contact with material things only at a few points in our lives. The corporal part of us is fed, warmed, and clothed by material things, but we live, move, and have our being in the unseen. When we come to the reality of ourselves, the soul, the spirit of man, which is one with God, we live altogether in an invisible world. The real self is the unseen self. The man whose reflection we see in the mirror is but the shadow of the reality. The material body of flesh and blood that we see and can touch with our hands is not the real man that is behind what we see and touch. It is back of the cell, back of the atoms, back of the electrons which make up the body. The new philosophy is going back of appearance and showing us the real man, the invisible man. It is revealing his hidden potencies and possibilities and pointing the way to their development and use. It shows us that the impotent, sickly, ailing man, the weakling, the discouraged, disconsolate, complaining being, the failure, the man full of discord, disease, and harmony, is not the man God made, that this is the unreal creature man himself has made. This is the being that wrong thinking, wrong living, and unfortunate motives have made, the being who is the victim of his passions, of his moods, of his ignorance of realities, the great eternal verities of life. We all learned as children that man is made in God's image and likeness, but the new philosophy urges us to act on this truth, to look beyond the appearance to the reality, to see with the inner eye the real man, the invisible man, who is one with his Creator. He is strong, vigorous, robust, with godlike powers and qualities. He matches God's ideal of manhood. There is no suggestion of failure, of weakness, of instability, of sickness about him. He is perfect, immortal, unchangeable as truth itself, because the real man is the truth, being, changeless reality. No matter what his conditions or circumstances, the God stuff, the God principle, the divinity in him is still intact, still perfect, still contains all of his possibilities, is still stamped with nobility, with success, with health, with prosperity, with harmony, with the image of his Creator. For God's image and likeness is perfect, immortal. If we could only realize this and measure life with its infinite possibilities from the standpoint of the changeless reality of man, instead of from that of the changing unreality of the body, if we could only hold the thought that we are a part of the creative intelligence of the universe, co-partners with God in our work here on the earth, how much more we could accomplish, how much higher we could climb, how much happier we should be when man realizes the tremendous significance of the reality of the unseen, when he grasps the truth of his unity with his Maker, the unity of life, the oneness of the source of all things in the universe, and that all is a manifestation of divine mind. He will come into possession of the illimitable power the Creator has implanted in every one of us. When Christ emphasized the fact that the kingdom of heaven is within us, he meant that this kingdom within is identical with the divine mind, and that it is there man taps the source of all power, of all supply. The kingdom within is the kingdom of power, where all man's creative work is started. It is there he connects with the universal substance, the great creative energy. and thought is the invisible tool with which he fashions his creations, acting upon the hidden, mysterious substance from which everything in the universe is evolved. The thought tool directs, controls, creates according to his desires. It finds its material in the unseen world, and in proportion as the mind grasps the reality of the unseen, the power and the possibilities are there. It is in the unseen world that man, animated and inspired by the consciousness of his partnership with divinity, is beginning to find some of the secrets of the universe, lifting the race from animalism and drudgery, changing the face of the world, pushing civilization up to new and more glorious heights. Your prosperity, your health, your happiness, your success, a fruition of your ambitions, all are in the great formless creative energy, ready to come into form when your thought does its part in starting the creative processes. Limitless wealth, inexhaustible supply to meet our needs, inventions, great productions of art and literature, music and drama, marvels in every field of human endeavor are in the great cosmic intelligence waiting the instruction of our thought to come into visible form on our earth. All the powers in the great cosmic intelligence are constantly working on the thoughts and desires of men. There is no favoritism in the unseen realities. The thoughts of the meanest man on earth are treated in precisely the same way as those of the noblest, just as the sun and the rain, the wind and the dew give their potencies to the poor farmer and the good one alike, so the thief, the criminal, the murderer, and the failure have the same material to work in as the just man, the nobly successful, the great architects and artists, the great engineers, inventors, merchants, the great men and women in every field who are uplifting the race and making the world a better place to live in. In other words, the creative force of thought puts an invincible power into man's hands, makes him a creator, the molder of his life, his destiny, his fortunes. We cannot think without creating. For every thought is a seed planted in the universal substance. It will produce something like itself. You and I can sow in the invisible, constructive thoughts, beautiful thoughts, thoughts of love, of goodwill, of health, of prosperity, of happiness, of success in our chosen work, or we can sow destructive thoughts, ugly thoughts, thoughts of hatred and ill will, of disease, of discord, of failure, of poverty, of all sorts of misery. And one thing is certain, whatever we sow, we shall reap. That is the law, and there is no escape from it. Most of the poverty, disease, failure, and unhappiness in the world come from ignorance of the law. These things do not fit God's plan for his children. The Father never intended that we should be subject to disease, that we should wear ourselves out in drudgery, in unhappiness and failure, in poverty, in constant anxiety, fearing all sorts of trouble and misery. The specter of disease and the wolf at the door are our own creations. They exist only in our minds. But as long as we visualize them, think on them, fear them, they will become real for us and manifest themselves in our lives: health, abundance, success, happiness, a glorious, joyful living. These are the things the Creator intended for all his children, but most of us drive them from us by our false, pessimistic thinking, and then whine and complain about fate and hard luck, when just the reverse is true, when the invisible world about us is packed with infinite possibilities, awaiting our thought seed, our desire seed, our ambition seed, our aspiration seed, our prosperity and success seed, backed by our effort. on the material plane, to make them manifest in the forms upon which we concentrate. If you are poor, ailing, and unsuccessful, you are working against the law, and until you come to a realization of the truth about the unseen forces at your command and work with the law, you will continue to be poor, ailing, and unsuccessful. Why not begin now to make the unseen forces your friends instead of making them your enemies? Why not turn about face mentally and work with the law by simply holding the right thought? Why not turn your back on disease and poverty and failure by continually holding the health and abundance thought, saying to yourself, I am the child of the author of health, joy, and abundance. I am the child of the all supply. Health and success continually flow to me from the all supply, which is the source of my being. Nothing but myself can cut me off from this source. Nothing but my own wrong thinking can cut off my supply, the health, success, and happiness that are my birthright. I claim my inheritance from my Father now. I am health. I am success. I am happiness. I am free now and forever from all that would hinder my development, from everything that would hinder the realization of the ambitions the Father Himself has implanted in me. This is my appointed work, the task He has given me to do here on this earth. To carry out the details of His plan for me is to realize my ambitions. I am working in partnership with Him and I cannot fail. I am one with Him. I again make my affirmation. I am health. I am success. I am happiness. I am abundance. My future is secure. I will go straight on, fearing nothing, for there is nothing to fear when I know that God is all, and that I am one with Him. No matter what your present circumstances and environment, if you hold fast to this mental attitude, to a firm belief in the reality of the unseen, where your supply is, and work in harmony with the law, you can, through the creative power of thought, acting on the invisible universal substance, fashion, and draw out of the unseen realms of supply whatever you will: knowledge, wisdom, power, health, wealth, happiness, success, the realization of all your hopes and visions. Chapter 6. If you can finance yourself, beware of little extravagances. A small leak will sink a big ship. Benjamin Franklin. Debt is like any other trap, easy enough to get into it, but hard enough to get out. SHAW. The improvident man is a liability to the concern in which he is employed, the community in which he lives, his family, and himself. A little money in the bank is a great friend both in time of need and in time of opportunity. Many people completely fail in life or are forced to live in mortifying poverty, to struggle along perhaps under the curse of debt, miserable and handicapped all their lives because they never learned how to finance themselves. There is nothing more important to a human being than to be able not only to earn his living, but also to know how to use his money to the best advantage, for on this depends his power to make himself independent and consequently to do his best work in the world. The money sense, if not inherited, should be cultivated. Every child should be taught how to finance himself. He should know how to handle money, how to save money, how to spend it wisely for personal enlargement and for life enrichment. Every child should be trained in thrifty habits, should learn the true value of money, and should be able to feel the backaches in every dollar. If we do not teach our children to know what money means, how can we expect them to show wisdom in handling money in their maturity? The average man does not use anything like the good judgment, the good sense in spending and investing his money which he does in earning it. A self-made millionaire tells me that not more than 3 men out of 100 who have made money are able to hold on to it. Multitudes of men die without an independence, without a home, without even having been able to support themselves. I am constantly running across men in middle life or later who have worked hard for many years and tried to get on, but they have nothing to show for it, have nothing laid by. They have no ready cash to enable them to avail themselves of opportunities, and no good, solid investments. They have never made any headway since they were young men because they never learned how to finance themselves. They are like the frog in the well, which keeps jumping up only to fall back again to the bottom from where it started. There is no other one thing which will mean quite so much to you in later life, my young friend, as learning the art of handling money and knowing how to finance yourself wisely. If you cannot do this, you will always be an easy mark for any smooth and oily promoter that happens along. Everybody will be aware of your gullibility and know that if you have any money, it is not much of a trick to get it away from you. Money is the slipperiest stuff in the world. The majority of people can't hold on to it any more than they could hold on to an eel or a greased pig. It slips through their fingers and disappears through all sorts of leaks of the pocketbook. Scores of men can make money where only one can hold on to it. There is always somebody who needs money, always some temptation to spend it. Most people take too much risk with the money they have. They are too greedy, too anxious to keep it at work. They dislike having $1 on hand that is not earning something, and so they often make the most foolish investments. There is one man of my acquaintance, an able businessman, in many respects, who has been in hot water most of his life because of this. He never has ready cash for any unusual opportunity or emergency. He is a fine chap, a popular man, and has much ability, but he cannot bear to keep money lying idle. It must be doing something. So he puts it into anything that offers, and then when good chances come he can't avail himself of them because his money is tied up in some wildcat scheme. Don't take chances with your little savings, is the advice of level-headed experts in financial matters. Making foolish investments, trying to make large profits has kept vast multitudes of people in poverty all their lives. There is nothing like taking a stand in your early career only to invest in sound, solid, substantial things. The rich man can afford to take chances because if he loses he does not feel it, but you can't afford it. Go slow, the gambling instinct, the effort to make a fortune. Quickly, a lot of money with a little investment is the cause of more unhappiness, of the poverty condition and more homes than anything else I know of. It makes more disappointed lives, thwarts more ambitions, causes more people to die disappointed with their careers than any other thing. One of the first steps in financing yourself properly is to keep a personal cash account. This is one of the best educators and teachers of economy and system. If the habit is formed when you are young and yours, it will never be broken. It will mean a competence in later life when otherwise there would have been none. The world demands that every individual know how to take care of himself, how to be independent, self-reliant, how to finance himself wisely, how to make the most of his income, however you make your living, whether by the work of your hand or of your brain, in a trade or in a profession, at home or in the shop. Whether your income be small or large, you will always be placed at a disadvantage unless you know how to finance yourself successfully. This is not to be close mean, or stingy, but to know how to make the most out of your income, not to expend the margin you should save in silly extravagances or to make foolish investments. There is one thing that should be indelibly impressed upon every youth's mind, and that is the tragic consequences of debt, especially when incurred in early life. It has ruined many of the most promising careers. The youth should be so trained that under no consideration could he be induced to complicate his life by financial obligations. He should be shown that his success in life, the realizing of his ambition, will depend very largely upon keeping his ability free from any sort of entanglement, and that he must keep this freedom at all costs. He should be taught that his unclouded enthusiasm and his zeal are very precious assets, and that nothing will kill these more effectively than the consciousness of being in a trap, the consciousness of being tied hand and foot by the curse of debt. The youth should be taught that to mortgage his future prospects would be fatal. I have known quite a number of very promising young men to run in debt for automobiles. Many men have even mortgaged their little homes in order to get an automobile, trying to justify themselves by what it would mean to the health and pleasure of their wife and children. Of course it would mean a lot to them, but on the other hand, to a young man who is just starting out for himself, the purchasing of that which he cannot afford may handicap him for many years. No one can be happy, no matter how optimistic, who is forever in the clutches of poverty, of harassing debt. I know a man who has literally lived in shame for many years because of early debts which he contracted when he had good credit. When he lost his business, he had to struggle with this debt until the interest doubled and trebled, and sometimes quadrupled. Nothing could have persuaded him to put his head in such a noose if he had realized what the result would be. To be broke is bad, says Dr. Frank Crane. It's worse. It's a crime. It's still worse, for it's silly. Crimes can be pardoned and sins forgiven, but for the plumb fool there is no hope. Now, the young man who puts nothing by for a rainy day or an emergency is a plumb fool, and there are so many of them. As the late Marshall Field said, the present-day tendency to live beyond their incomes brings disaster to thousands. Many people live beyond their means because they cannot bear to have other people think that they cannot afford this and cannot afford that they cannot keep up appearances, their social standing. But it is better to be unpopular and to be embarrassed. Better to be unpopular than to be in a hole, as someone suggests. I am your best friend in time of need. I can do for you what those who love you most are powerless to do without my aid. I am the oil that smooths the troubled waters of life. I straighten out difficulties and remove obstacles that will yield to nothing else. I am a supporter of faith, a spur to ambition, a tonic to aspiration, an invaluable aid to people who are struggling to make their dreams come true. I give a man a fine sense of independence, a feeling of security in regard to the future, which increases his strength and ability and enables him to work with more vigor and spontaneity. I am a stepping stone to better things, a hope builder, an enemy of discouragement, because I take away one of the greatest causes of worry, anxiety, and fear. I increase self-respect and self-confidence and give a feeling of comfort and assurance that nothing else can give. I impart a consciousness of power that makes multitudes who otherwise would cringe and crawl, hold up their heads and carry themselves with dignity. I open the door to many opportunities, for self-culture and to social and business advancement. I have enabled tens of thousands of young men who made sacrifices to get me to take advantage of splendid opportunities which those who did not have me were obliged to let go by. I increase your importance in the world and your power to do good. I make people think well of your ability, increase their confidence in you, give you standing, capital, an assured position, influence, credit, and many of the good things of life that without me would be unattainable. I am a shock absorber for the jolts of life, a buffer between you and the rough knocks of the world. The man or woman who doesn't make an honest, determined effort to get me is lacking in one of the fundamental qualities that make for the happiness, the prosperity, and well-being of the whole race. Millions of mothers and children have suffered all sorts of hardships and humiliations because husbands and fathers lacked this practical quality, which would have saved themselves and those dependent on them so much suffering and misery. Multitudes have spent their declining years in homeless wretchedness, or eked out a miserable existence in humiliating dependence on the grudging charity of relatives, while other multitudes have died in the poorhouse because they fail to make friends with me in their youth. I am one of the most reliable aids in the battle of life, the struggle for independence, ever ready to help you in an emergency, sickness in your family, accident or loss, a crisis in your business, whatever it may be. You can always rely on me to step into the breach and do my work quietly, effectively, without bluster. I am a little ready cash. Chapter 7. How to increase your ability. Our ability is as sensitive to our moods, our feelings, our mental attitudes, as the mercury is to the changes of the weather, or weather vane is to the currents of air. The perpetual taunting and haunting of unsatisfied ambition, the consciousness that one has the ability to do the bigger thing, but is obliged to do the lesser because one did not early in life persist in following the path that led to the digger, to feel cramped and limited in a little 7-by-9 situation in middle life or later, when one knows that he has the natural ability to fill an infinitely bigger place, is a hell on earth. Hope, self-confidence, assurance, faith in one's mission, enthusiasm in one's work, optimism, courage, joy open up the ability accordion wonderfully. Fear, anger, envy, prejudice, jealousy, worry, smallness, meanness, selfishness, close it. Happiness in our work, the consciousness that we are doing our best, looking our best, and making a good impression on others. These are tremendous enlargers of ability because they increase one's self-respect and self-appreciation. They give one assurance, confidence, and confidence gives a marvelous impetus to initiative and executive ability. A prominent businessman says that the best contract he ever got was one he lost. Why? Because it set him to investigating the cause of the loss, to investigating himself, to finding the weak places in himself and in his business methods. It was the lost contract that led him to the discovery that he was not using more than half the ability he actually possessed. Most people rob themselves of success and fortune by mistaken ideas about their ability. They are like a young stenographer who told me that if she had the ability to become an expert in her line, she would go to evening school, study nights, and do everything she could to improve her education and to develop herself in all possible ways. But as she was sure that she had only a very moderate share of ability, she was convinced that there was no use in trying, and that she must be satisfied with an ordinary position. In other words, she believed that her ability was a fixed quantity, something which could not be enlarged or diminished, which she could not change in any respect any more than she could change the color of her hair or of her eyes. Now, the idea that our ability is an invariable quantity, fixed by heredity or by some immutable law which we can neither understand nor control, is one of the most unfortunate that could take possession of anyone's mind, and nothing could be farther from the truth, for, as a matter of fact, human ability is a very variable and a very elastic quantity. It can be expanded almost indefinitely or contracted in a great many ways. It is like an accordion, which the player sometimes draws out to its full extent, and again closes completely. For instance, you can close up your accordion by wrong thinking until but a mere fraction of your possible ability is available, or you can open it up by right thinking and make every bit of it count in making your work, your life, a grand success. Multitudes of people go through life with their actual ability so cramped, so muzzled and suffocated by their negative, destructive mental attitude, their doubts, fears, worries, superstitions, and preconceived ideas, their lack of courage, their lack of faith in themselves and in their mission, that they make but a very small percentage of it count in their life work, even when they make a supreme effort to do so. Everywhere we see men and women, hard workers, who do not accomplish a tenth of what they could accomplish with half the effort and half the time they now expend, if they would only keep their minds in a positive, creative condition and face life in the right way, while the development and sharpening of the different mental faculties is the first essential to the increase of our natural ability. It is a mistake to think that all of our ability expansion is dependent on this. It doesn't matter what amount of natural ability you have if it is unavailable, bottled up by your pessimism, your doubts, your fears, your cowardice, and lack of faith. It is useless to you. If you had a valuable gold mine on your property and, instead of clearing away all obstructions to get at the ore, you should add a lot more, your gold mine wouldn't add one particle to your available wealth. Potentially you had an immense fortune, but so far as you were concerned, it might just as well not be there, for you derived no benefit from gold. You could not get it in exchange for the good things of life that you desired. It is just the same with your ability. If instead of doing everything in your power to make it available, to give it outlet, you shut it up within you, covering it over with all sorts of mental obstructions, it will never expand, will never yield you anything. Many of us think if we only had some other person's talent or opportunities, if we only had the advantages of some other fellows near us, if only we were superbly equipped with facilities for our particular work, that we would do wonderful things. Now, the Creator never sent anyone into this world without equipping him with just the tools required for the job he meant him to do, the job which he qualified him in every respect to do. He didn't sharpen the tools for us, because if he had done that, he would have deprived us of the very thing that is designed for our expansion and growth. It is by drawing out all that is in us, by bettering our work each day, by overcoming obstacles, clearing away the rubbish and mental debris that evoke our growth, and always reaching up to the attainment of our highest ideal, that day by day we unfold layer after layer of the wealth of ability that is enfolded in every human being, no matter what his apparent disabilities or handicaps. Helen Keller is, perhaps, one of the most remarkable examples the world has ever seen of the power of the determined soul to overcome everything that stands in the way of its complete development. Deaf, dumb, and blind at the age of 18 months. What opportunity was there for a human being so handicapped to do anything of value in the world, to become anything other than a despair to herself, a hopeless, helpless burden on her relatives? Yet out of her world of darkness, the indomitable spirit within evolved a being of such remarkable ability and power that there are few today who are rendering greater service to humanity than this woman who, apparently at the outset of life, was hopelessly handicapped. She is a wonderful illustration of the truth that there is no limit to man's development, and no insuperable obstacles to his development except those he himself puts in his way. The eagle is the mightiest and most powerful of all the feathered tribe. It can fly higher and remain longer on the wing than any other bird. Yet if this monarch of the air were held captive, tied by one of its feet to a huge bow or heavy weight, it could not fly as high as a barnyard fowl, no matter how strong its natural instincts to soar into the heavens. It could not move from the earth. Now, like the eagle, man was made to fly high, to do great things. But multitudes of people spend their lives doing little things instead of the big things they are capable of doing, because of something which chains their ability and holds them down in an inferior position. There is a vast amount of unproductive ability in the great failure army today, which was never given an opportunity to fulfill the purposes for which the Creator meant it. Some of the most pitiable instances of spoiled lives I know of are those of men and women of middle age who really have the ability to do something large and grand, but who have failed to do so because of their unwillingness to make sacrifices in youth for the sake of their ambition. Love of ease enchained their faculties and held them prisoners until their ambition died and they lost even their desire to fly. Some people are tied down by bad physical or mental habits which make it impossible for them to put their best selves into their work. There is a constant leakage of energy and vital force resulting from preventable causes which hinders their progress at every step and makes their ability unavailable. Others are held down by character traits or peculiarities of disposition which handicap all their success qualities and neutralize their efforts to advance. A quick temper, a jealous, envious disposition, lack of faith and self-confidence, vacillation, bashfulness, timidity, carelessness, inaccuracy, and a host of other faults and weaknesses seriously hamper the development of their ability and act like weights in holding them down when they are eager to go up higher. Whatever causes inharmony in the mind robs us of power and hinders our advancement. If you would gain control of all your resources and increase your ability, avoid as you would poison everything that tends to make you negative: worry, anxiety, jealousy, envy, fear, cowardice, the whole family of depressing, despondent thoughts. They are all confessions of weakness and may be summed up as power destroyers. Every fit of the blues, every unhappy thought, every feeling of discouragement, of despondency, every doubt, every fear is a crippler of ability. In other words, our ability is extremely sensitive to our moods to our mental condition generally, when we don't feel like it, when we are out of sorts, when for one reason or another we feel blue, discouraged, despondent, full of doubt and anxiety. Our ability is very much contracted. On the other hand, when we are in good trim, when our minds are harmonious, not anxious or worried about anything, it is enormously expanded. That is, all the positive, uplifting, encouraging, cheerful emotions and feelings expand or increase our ability, while all of the negative, depressing, discouraging, gloomy ones contract or lessen it. This shows that after we have done everything in our power to increase our ability by education, by training for our special work, by sharpening and improving our natural gifts and faculties in every possible way, we can yet so contract or expand it by our mental attitude that it is safe to say 9/10 of its availability depends upon our state of mind at any given time. We all know how it is enlarged by a sublime self-confidence, an unwavering faith, and how it is contracted by the lack of faith in ourselves, by self-depreciation, by timidity and lack of courage. You know how much bigger a man you are, how much more capable of planning and doing things when your courage is up and you believe in yourself than when you are blue and discouraged. You know from experience that your consciousness of ability expands so you feel as though you could tackle almost anything. Make this your habitual state of mind and your ability will always be available, always at its maximum. On the other hand, hold a poor opinion of yourself. Refuse to assume responsibility. Always berate yourself and belittle your powers. And if you had the natural ability of a Plato, you would never amount to anything. This sort of mental attitude holds down more real ability, keeps more deserving merit in mediocre positions than perhaps any other handicap in the gamut of human disabilities. Multitudes who have excellent mental endowments and splendid traits of character remain practically nobodies all their lives because of timidity, a sense of inferiority, a doubting, self-deprecating attitude. Others with half their natural ability forge ahead, make fortunes, attain places of power and influence, while those with poor attitudes remain in poverty and obscurity. Everywhere in life the timid, retiring, self-effacing man is placed at a tremendous disadvantage, mentally, socially, and in a business and professional way. People may be sorry for him, they may pity him, and his friends may say he has great ability and splendid traits of character, but this is not enough. Lacking self-confidence, push, assurance, the courage to demonstrate his ability to the world, he will not win out in anything in a large way. His mean opinion of himself will neutralize a large percentage of his real ability. Every man has more ability than he thinks he has and more than he ever uses ordinarily. Under the impulse of a strong motive, a new stimulus to exertion, or having a great responsibility thrust upon us, being put in a situation where we must either sink or swim, there isn't one among us that wouldn't respond to the demand and unfold an amount of ability which we never before dreamed we possessed. Some men's ability lies so deep that they are never at their best except in a great crisis. Then the giant in them is unshackled, and great powers, of which they themselves were ignorant, are unlocked within them. Responsibility is a great ability developer. We often see a good example of this when a young man is taken into partnership in a large concern. His initiative, his executive force, his courage, all the ability-expanding qualities, are so strengthened by the stimulus of promotion that he goes ahead and does things that he did not dream he could ever accomplish when he was an employee. Now, taking him into partnership did not add to his latent ability at all, but it gave him more confidence in himself, and the fact that he is put on his mettle to make good in the new position compels him to draw on his ability to the limit, and he does make good. Never sidestep a responsibility. It is throwing away an opportunity to enlarge your ability. If an Edison should invent an instrument by means of which it would be possible for men and women to increase their natural ability 50%, there is no price we would not be willing to pay for such an instrument. Yet there isn't a man or woman, a boy or girl, living today who can't do this by right thinking, facing life the right way, and using the opportunities that are at hand right where you are, no matter what your environment, whatever your disadvantage or handicaps. You have enough ability to make you a success in whatever you desire to do, to lift you out of lack and poverty and make you a millionaire. Expand your ability. Do everything that will enable you to stretch your accordion to its limit, and you will be amazed at what you can accomplish. Chapter 8. Look like a success. You have no more right to go about among your fellows with a vinegary expression in your face, radiating mental poison, spreading the germs of doubt, fear, discouragement, and despondency among them, than you have to inflict bodily injuries on them. To be a conqueror in appearance and one's bearing is the first step toward success. Walk, talk, and act as though you were a somebody, and you are much more likely to become such. Let victory speak from your face and express itself in your manner, your conversation, your bearing. Never show the world a gloomy, pessimistic face, which is an admission that life has been a disappointment to you. Instead of a glorious triumph, when a man feels like a king, he will look kingly. Majesty more regal than ever sat on a throne will look out of his face. When he has learned how to claim and express the divinity of his birthright. W.H.E.N. Frank A. Vanderlip, former president of the National City Bank, New York, was a reporter on the Chicago Tribune. He asked his chief to tell him what he thought would be the greatest help to a man struggling to succeed. Look as if you had already succeeded, was the prompt reply. This made a great impression upon young Vanderlip and completely changed some of his ideas on the subject, especially in regard to dress. From that time he began to spruce up, to be more particular about his general appearance. His chief had opened his eyes to the great value of appearances, especially in making a first impression. He became convinced that if a man did not look prosperous, people would think he did not have the right ambition or the ability to succeed, that there must be something the matter with him, or he would dress better and make a better appearance. Charles W. Eliot, President Emeritus of Harvard, said that much of one's success would depend on others' opinion of him, of those to whom he, perhaps, had never spoken a word, had never even seen. One's reputation travels by various routes in every direction and, according to its nature, will have a big influence on one's career. It is a great thing to form a habit of going through the world giving the impression to everybody that you are a winner, that you are bound to be somebody, to stand for something worthwhile in the world. Let this idea stand out in everything you do, in your conversation, your appearance. Let everything about you make the world say, he is a winner. Keep your eye on him. If you are anxious to win out in a large way, cultivate the bearing of success, the appearance of a successful man. If you carry about with you a defeated, poorhouse atmosphere, if your appearance suggests slovenliness, slipshodness, the lack of system and order, the lack of energy, of push, of the progressive spirit, you can't expect others to think you are an efficient, up-to-date person pushing to the front. Of course, every employer knows that it sometimes happens that a shabbily dressed man with baggy trousers and soiled linen may have a lot of good stuff in him, but they don't expect it. The chances of finding a very valuable employee with such an advertisement of himself is so small that most men won't take the risk. Your dress, your bearing, your conversation, your conduct should all square with your ambition. All of these things are aids to your achievement, and you cannot afford to ignore any one of them. The world takes you at your own valuation. If you assume the victorious attitude toward it, it will give you the right of way. One reason why it is so difficult for many young people to get a start to get on comes from the fact that they do not create in others the impression of power, of the force that achieves, that does things. They do not realize how much their reputation has to do with their getting on in the world. They do not realize that other people's confidence is a tremendous force. A great physician or lawyer gets his reputation largely from the impression which he makes upon people, not only in the way he performs the duties of his profession, but also in his general attitude. We weigh, measure, and estimate people by the impression they make upon us. Everything considered, the victorious attitude inspires confidence in others as well as in oneself. Its psychological effect is compelling. Walk, talk, and act as though you were already the man you long to be, and you are unconsciously putting into operation unseen forces that bend circumstances to the accomplishment of your will. Let your air be that of a winner, of a man who is resolved to make his way in the world, to make himself stand for something. Put energy and life into your step, vim, force, vitality, pep into every movement of your body. Look straight forward, never wince. Don't apologize for taking up room on the earth which might be filled to better advantage by another. You have just as much right here as any other human being. If you are making good, and if you are not making good, you should be. No matter what comes to you, defeat, threatened failure, never lose your victorious consciousness. Let people read this declaration in your bearing, in your life generally. I am a winner. I have not shown the white feather. I have not shirked. I have done my part. I have not been a sneak. I have not been a thief or a cheat, wearing and using what others have earned and giving nothing back in return. I have done my part and can hold up my head and look the world in the face. The more trying your situation, the harder the way looks to you. The darker the outlook, the more necessary it is to carry that victorious consciousness. If you carry the down and out expression, if you confess by your very face that you are beaten, or that you expect to be, you are a goner. The victorious idea of life, not the failure idea, the triumphant, not the thwarted ambition, is the thing to keep ever uppermost in the mind, for it is this that will lead you to the goal you aspire to reach. Have faith in your God-given power to succeed in a worthy ambition. Concentrate your efforts on its realization, and nothing on earth can keep you back from success. Such a mental attitude will make you a winner from the start, because you always head toward your thought, toward your conviction of yourself. The conviction that you are born to win is a tremendous creative force in your life just as the conviction that you are a failure will keep you down till you change the model of yourself. Life is not a losing game. It is always victorious when properly played. It is the players who are at fault. God did not make a man to be a failure. He made him to be a glorious success. The great trouble with all failures is that they were not started right. It was not drilled into the very texture of their being in youth that what they would get out of life must be created mentally first, and that inside the man, inside the woman, is where the great creative processes of all that we realize in our careers are carried on. Most of us depend too much upon the things outside of us, upon other people, when the mainspring of life, the power that moves the world of men and things, is within us. Think what it would mean to the world today for all the people who look upon themselves as nobodies and failures, dwarfs of what they might have been and ought to be, would get this triumphant idea of life into them, if they could once get a glimpse of their own possibilities, and would assume the victorious, the triumphant attitude. They would revolutionize the world. How many people form the chronic habit of indulging in frequent fits of depression? They allow the blues an easy entrance to their minds, in fact, are always at home to them, and are susceptible to every form of discouragement that comes along. Every little setback, every little difficulty sends them into the blues, and they will say, "What's the use?" As a result, their work is poor and ineffective, and they do not attract the things they desire. Every time you give way to discouragement, every time you are blue, you are going backward. Your destructive thoughts are tearing down what you have been trying to build. One fit of discouragement, visualizing failure or poverty-stricken conditions, will rapidly destroy the result of much triumphant thought-building. Your creative forces will harmonize with your thoughts, your emotions and moods. They will create in sympathy with them, saturate your mind with hope, the expectation of better things, with the belief that your dreams are coming true. Be convinced that you are going to win out. Let your mind rest with success thoughts. Don't let the enemies of your success and happiness dominate in your mind, or they will bring to you the condition that they represent. Destroy the thoughts and emotions and convictions which tend to destroy your hope, your ambitions, to tear down the results of your past building. If you don't, they will create more failure, more poverty. If you want to realize success, think creative, successful conditions. Set your character and your whole life towards triumph, towards victory. Hold the victorious thought towards yourself, towards your future, towards your career. It will tend to create the conditions favorable to the carrying out of your ambition, the fulfilling of your desires. Go boldly, go serenely, go augustly. Who can withstand thee then? I know of nothing that gives more satisfaction than the consciousness that we have formed the habit of winning, the habit of victory, the habit of carrying a victorious mental attitude, of walking, acting, talking, looking like a winner, a conqueror. That sort of attitude always keeps the dominant, helpful qualities in the fore, always in the ascendancy. One of the most obstinate habits to overcome in mature life, and one fatal to efficiency, is the habit of being defeated. Never allow yourself to fall into it. You may learn a lesson from every defeat that will make a new stepping stone to your ambition. Success is every human being's normal condition. He was made for success. He is a success machine, and to be a failure is to pervert the intention of his creator. Every youth should be taught to assume a triumphant attitude towards life, to carry himself like a winner, because he was made to win. No child is really educated until he has learned to live a victorious life. That is what real education spells. Victory. The habit of winning out in whatever we undertake can be formed almost as easily as the habit of being defeated, and every victory helps us to win other victories. From the cradle, a child should be taught that he is divine, a God in the making, and that he should hold up his head and go forth with confidence, because he is destined for something superb. Teach the child that he came to the earth with a message for mankind, and that he should deliver it like an ambassador. Show him that wrestling with difficulties is like practicing in a gymnasium, where every victory over his muscles makes him so much stronger and makes the next attempt so much surer and easier. Let him fully understand that every problem solved in school, every errand promptly and courteously performed, every piece of work superbly done, is just so much more added to his winning power, to the strength of his success. Possibilities, the great prizes of life, are for the courageous, the dauntless, the self-confident. The man who is timid and hesitating, who stops to listen to his fears, lets many a good opportunity pass beyond his reach. If you find you are inclined to be timid, if you lack courage and initiative, if you are too bashful to speak or express your opinions when it is desired, if you blush and stammer and are awkward when you would appear calm and self-possessed, you can overcome your defects and build up the qualities you lack by training your subjective self to be courageous and embarrassed at your ease in any surroundings. Constantly suggest courage and heroism to this inner self. Stoutly deny that you are timid, cowardly, afraid to speak or to be natural in public or before anyone. Assert that you are brave, that you are not afraid to do anything, that it is right and proper you should do. Practice walking about among your fellows as though you were brave, courageous, self-confident, perfectly sure of yourself, as capable of carrying on a conversation creditably, or of entering a room gracefully as you are of discharging your daily duties. Hold the triumphant thought towards your future, towards your ideal, your dream. Carry the atmosphere of the victor. Learn to radiate power. Let everything about you bespeak confidence, strength, masterfulness, victory. Let everybody who has anything to do with you see that you are a born winner. You must not go about as though life had been a disappointment, as though you had no special ambition in life. If you want to stand for anything unusual, if you want to carry weight in the world, if you want to make your neighbors proud that you live near them, you must brace up in every respect. Keep yourself up to standard. Don't go about like a failure, like a nobody. Don't go about in a sloppy, slovenly way. Dress up, brace up, look up, struggle up. Let the world see as you walk about that you think well of yourself, and that there is a reason for it. Let people see that you are conscious you are on a superb mission, playing a superb part in the great life game. You will soon begin to see the thing you are looking for, instead of the thing you are afraid of, and will find your dreams coming true. Chapter 9. How to make your dreams come true. Our heart longings, our soul aspiration are prophecies, predictions, forerunners of realities. They are indicators of our possibilities, of the things you can accomplish the moment you resolve to make your life dream come true. You have taken the first step towards its realization, but you will stop there if your efforts cease keeping right after your ideals, nursing your visions, cultivating your dreams, visualizing the thing you long for, vividly, intensely, and striving with all your might to match it with reality. This is what makes life count. Our dreaming capacity gives us a peep into the glorious realities that await us further on. Dreams are true, while they last, and do not we live in dreams? Tennyson. When Gordon H. Selfridge, former manager of the Marshall Field Company, went to London and there established a great department store of the Marshall Field type, he only took the final step in the realization of a dream which he had nursed for years. Long before he stepped foot on the shores of England, he had the department store all worked out in his mind. He had built it mentally before he crossed the Atlantic, and already in his mind's eye saw it a marvelous success. I pictured the great crowds of customers headed toward my new store, he said, and could see it full of eager buyers long before I went to England. From the time that the idea of a department store in London took form in his mind, Mr. Selfridge kept visualizing the completed structure. He kept his dream alive and vivid by the determination to make it come true. He would not allow it to be shattered or let his idea be driven out by doubts, fears, and uncertainties, or by the well-meant advice of his friends, to keep out of England because the English people were so slow to new ideas that he would fail if he went there. He didn't heed what they said, for he didn't believe that the English people were so unprogressive as they thought. He believed that they would respond to the American idea, the Marshall Field idea, and that the methods which had proved so successful in the United States would also be successful in England. The amazing popularity of the Selfridge department store, which has long been one of the sights of London, is but another proof that the dreamer who dreams dreams and sees visions is always wiser than, and always ahead of, the so-called practical, wise ones who discourage him and try to turn him aside from his vision. The men and women who, in all ages, have done great things in the world have always been dreamers, have always seen visions, and always pictured their dreams as realities, visualized themselves accomplishing the things they were ambitious to do long before they were able to work them out in the actual and make them realities. Columbus, Stevenson, Charles Goodyear, Elias Howe, Robert Fulton, Cyrus W. Field, Edison, all the great discoverers, scientists, explorers, philanthropists, inventors, philosophers who have pushed the world forward and done immeasurable service to mankind, have visualized their dreams, nursed their visions through long years, many of them in the midst of poverty, persecution, ridicule, and opposition, until they brought their dreams to earth and made them realities. In making a study of the methods of successful men and women, I have found that they are almost invariably strong and vivid visualizers of the things they are trying to accomplish. They are intense workers as well as dreamers, and nurse their vision tenaciously until they match it with reality. They build castles in the air, but they put the solid foundation of reality under them. When Lillian Nordica was a poor girl singing in the little church choir in her native village in Maine, when even her own people thought it a disgrace for a girl to appear on the stage, to sing in public concerts or in opera, she was picturing herself a great prima donna singing before vast audiences in her own country, in foreign capitals, and before the crowned heads of Europe. When young Henry Clay was practicing oratory before the domestic animals in a Virginia barnyard, he visualized himself swaying vast audiences by his eloquence. When Washington was a lad of 12, he pictured himself as a leader, rich and powerful, a man of vast importance in the colonies, and the ruler of a nation he would help to create. When the young John Wanamaker was delivering clothing in a pushcart in Philadelphia, he saw himself as the proprietor of a much larger establishment than any then in that city. He saw beyond that and glimpsed the Wanamaker of later days, the great powerful merchant with immense stores in the world's leading capitals. Young Carnegie pictured himself a powerful figure in the steel world, as did the youth Charles M. Schwab, even when an ordinary employee. When working at the Homestead plant, Schwab told Mr. Carnegie what he wanted was not more salary, not a larger position as a mere employee, that his ambition was to be a partner in the concern. That was the only thing that would satisfy him. Now this sort of visualizing is not mere vanity or petty egotism. It is the God-urge in men pushing them out beyond themselves, beyond what is visible to the physical eye, to better things. The scriptures tell us that without a vision the people perish. I have never known a man to do anything out of the common who was never able to see beyond the visible into the vast invisible universe of the things that might be, who did not keep clearly in his mind the vision of the particular thing he was trying to accomplish. It is the man who can visualize what does not yet exist in the visible world about us and see it as a reality. The man who can see thriving industries where others see no chance, no opportunities. The man who sees teeming cities, great populations on the prairies where others see only sagebrush, alkali plains, desolation. The man who sees power, opulence, plenty, success, where others see only failure, limitation, poverty, and wretchedness, who eventually pushes to the top and wins out. It was this sort of vision that made James J. Hill the great empire builder of the Northwest. His dream of a great system of railroads that would cause millions of fertile farms to spring up along their route and make the desert blossom like a rose was laughed at as a visionary scheme by many of those who were working for him when he died. They were men who had never been able to make a place and a name for themselves because they had never learned that the great secret of success lies in visualizing dreams and making them come true. Perhaps they did not believe in their dreams and put them out of their minds as mere idle fancies. Many people seem to think that the imagination or visualizing faculty is a sort of appendix to the brain, which is not a fundamental or necessary part of man, and they have never taken it very seriously. But those of us who have studied mental laws know that it is one of the most important functions of the mind. We are beginning to discover that the power to visualize is a sort of advance courier, making announcement of the things that the Creator has qualified us to bring about. In other words, we are beginning to see that our visions are prophecies of our future, mental picture programs, which we are supposed to carry out to make concrete realities. For instance, a youth whose bent is entirely in another direction is not haunted by an architectural vision, an art vision, a mercantile vision, or a vision of some other calling for which he has no natural affinity. A girl does not dream of a musical career 4 years before she has the slightest opportunity for taking up music as a career if she has no musical talent, or if her ability in some other line is much more pronounced. Boys and girls, men and women, are not haunted by dreams to do what nature has not fitted them for. We dream a particular dream see a particular vision because we have the talent and the special ability to bring the dream, the vision, into reality. Of course, I do not mean by dreams and visions the mere fantasies, the vague, undefined thoughts that flit through the mind, but our real heart longings, our soul yearnings, the mental pictures of a future which haunts our dreams, and the insistent urge which prods us until we try to match them with their reality, to bring them out into the actual. There is a divinity back of these visions. They are prophecies of our possible future, and nature is throwing up these pictures on our mental screen to give us a glimpse of the possibilities that are awaiting us. One reason why most of us do such little original things is because we do not sufficiently nurse our visions and longings. The plan of the building must come before the building. We climb by the ladder of our visions, our dreams. The sculptor's model must live in his own mind before he can call it out of the marble. We do not half realize the mental force we generate by persistently visualizing our ideal, by the perpetual clinging to our dreams, the vision of the thing we long to do or to be. We do not know that nursing our desires makes the mental pictures sharper, more clean-cut, and that these mental processes are completing the plans of our future life building, filling in the outlines and details, and drawing to us out of the invisible energy of the universe the materials for our actual building. There is no other one thing you will find so helpful in the attainment of your ambition as the habit of visualizing what you are trying to accomplish, visualizing it vividly, just as distinctly, just as vigorously as possible, because this makes a magnet of the mind to attract what one is after. All about us we see young men focusing their minds with intensity and persistence on their special aims and attracting to themselves marvelous results. A medical student holds in his mind a vision of himself as a great physician or surgeon, and in a few years we are amazed at the size of his practice. He called it out of the great universal supply by his perpetual visualizing, the constant intensifying of his desire, and the unceasing struggle on the material plan to make his dream come true. Even if you are only a humble employee, visualize yourself as the man you long to be. See yourself in the exalted position you long to attain, a man of importance and power, carrying weight in your community. No matter if you are only an errand boy or a clerk, see yourself as a partner in your concern or a proprietor of a business of your own. There is nothing more potent in drawing your heart's desire to you than visualizing that desire, dreaming your dream, seeing yourself as the ideal man of your vision, filling the position in which your ambition would place you. Do this and work with all your might for the attainment of your object on the physical plane, and nothing can hinder your success. These are the means, consciously or unconsciously adopted, by which every successful man has ultimately attained his heart's desire, reading and thinking, visualizing and working along the lines of his ambition. The boy Thomas Alva Edison, at the very first opportunity, when a newsboy on the Grand Trunk Railway begins to actualize his desires by experimenting with chemicals in a baggage car which he had fitted up as a laboratory, he clings to his vision, constantly visualizes his dream of the magic possibilities of electricity, goes on discovering, experimenting, inventing, until we find him the world's greatest electrical inventor, the Wizard of Menlo Park. His mind, working in harmony with divine mind, has wrought marvelous inventions out of the great cosmic intelligence. which is packed with potencies for those who can visualize with intensity and work with constancy. What Edison has done, what all aspiring souls have done to make their dreams come true, you can do. Cling to your vision and work. There is a power in men, attack of the flesh, but not of it, working in harmony with the divine intelligence in the great cosmic ocean of energy, of limitless supply that is today, performing miracles in invention, in agriculture, in commerce, in the industry. This power, which is creative and everywhere operative, is destined to lift every created thing up to the peak of its possibilities. It is latent in you, awaiting expression, awaiting your cooperation to realize your ambition. The first step toward utilizing it is to visualize the ideal of what you want to make real, the ideal of the man or the woman you aim to be, and the things you want to do. Without this initial step, the further process of creating is impossible. No matter what happens, always hold fast to the thought that you can be what you long to be, that you can do the thing you want to do, and picture yourself always as succeeding in what you desire to come true in your life, no matter how urgent duties or obligations may for a time hold you back, how circumstances and conditions may contradict the possibility of your success, how people, even your own people, may blame or misunderstand you, may even call you a crank, crazy, a conceited egotist. Hold fast to your faith in your dream, in yourself. Cling to your vision, nurse it, for it is the God-inspired model by which He is urging you to shape your life. Chapter 10. How to cure discouragement. Discouragement has done more to dwarf the efforts of the race, has thwarted more careers, stunted and starved more lives than any other one agent. Never make a decision when downhearted. Never let the weak side of your nature take control. You are not capable of correct judgment when fear or doubt or despondency is in your mind. Sound judgment comes from a perfectly normal brain. Have you the grit and pluck to stand all sorts of discouragement and to struggle on after failure without losing heart, to get up again every time you fall? Can you stand criticism, misunderstanding, abuse without flinching or weakening? Have you the perseverance to go on when others turn back, to continue the fight when everybody around you is giving up? If you can do this, you are a winner. Nothing can hold you back from your goal. You can't do it. Keeps more people with splendid ability in mediocrity than almost any other thing. You can't do it. Meets you everywhere in life, at every turn you propose to take. You will find someone to warn you away, to tell you not to take that road, that it will lead to disaster. Unless you have unusual pluck, an iron and a determination which never wavers, you are likely to become discouraged. And when you are once discouraged, your initiative is deadened and your power paralyzed. Someone says, discouragement hides God's means and methods. It does more. It hides God Himself. It blots out of sight everything that is helpful and friendly to us. It paralyzes our ability, our courage, our self-confidence. It destroys our efficiency and cuts down the effectiveness of every one of our faculties. Every physician knows how discouragement affects the cure of a patient, delays it, and often makes it impossible. The sick man who is cheerful, hopeful of his restoration to health, has 10 chances to 1 for recovery compared with the one who is blue and despondent. Discouragement breaks the spirit, and when a man's spirit is broken, he has no heart for anything. He is beaten in life's battle. A broken spirit the loss of hope and courage causes more failures, more suicides, more insanity than almost anything else. I wish it were possible to show victims of discouragement what it does to them, how it destroys their morale and tears down what they have built up in their creative, hopeful moments. Only a short time ago I read the story of a fine young man who became the victim of discouragement. After losing his position during a period of business depression, this man would start out every morning to hunt for another, and every night he would come home disappointed, but for a long time not discouraged, always believing that he would ultimately get a job. This had been going on for weeks, when one night he was late in returning, and his wife, watching at the window until it was too dark to see any more, drew down the shades and tried and busying herself with housewifely tasks to dispel the sudden feeling of anxiety that gripped her. When her husband came an hour later, she noticed that some depressing influence seemed to have been working upon him, that he was not quite as hopeful as he had been. She cheered him up as usual, gave him his supper, encouraged him in every possible way, and sent him to bed comforted. Next morning he tried to talk hopefully, and when he was ready to start for the city, assured her that he was going to do his best. But it was evident he didn't feel quite as sure of himself, quite as self-confident as he had been. Watching at the window for his return that evening, the faithful wife was surprised to see that he was not alone. A shadowy, sinister figure was at his side, talking very earnestly to him. It accompanied him to the gate and then suddenly vanished. The next evening the same sinister figure walked at his side, and the look of despair on the man's face frightened her. The third evening the wife waited and watched until long after dark, but no husband came. Numb with fear, she sat through the long night at the window, where she kept a light burning until daylight, but no husband, and no word from him came to her. As soon as life began to stir in the neighborhood, she went out for a morning paper, and the first item that caught her eye was the suicide of a man who had thrown himself into the river and was drowned. Filled with foreboding, she rushed to the morgue where the newspaper stated the body had been taken, and there her fears were verified. The body of the drowned man was that of her husband. The young man had, toward the end, become so discouraged by the hideous pictures his doubts and fears threw upon the screen of his mind that he became mentally imbalanced, and in despair ended his life. In those last days, discouragement was so persistently at his side, telling him it was no use looking for a job, that he would never get one, that it was visualized by him as a reality, and actually became visible to the sensitive, sympathetic eyes of his wife. Right now I know a number of people who are so depressed and demoralized by pessimistic, discouraged thinking that they are seriously endangering their future success and the happiness of their whole lives because they are temporarily out of employment. Discouragement has taken hold of them and filled their minds with such black, depressing pictures that they go about as do the insane in the beautiful grounds allotted to them. They see only the gloomy mental world their thoughts have constructed, and are unaware of the bright, cheerful, sunlit world all round them. They are, in fact, temporarily insane because all mental depression, whatever the immediate cause, is in some degree mental derangement. The confusion and unhappiness, which are always the results of wrong thinking. It is well known that worry and discouragement cause chemical changes in the body, which actually produce chemical poisons These poisons lower the resisting power of both body and mind and leave the sufferer a prey to all sorts of unfortunate results. There are multitudes of people today in poor health and in poor circumstances, plodding along in discontent and unhappiness when they might be happy and doing superb things. Were they not the victims of discouraging conditions which are largely the result of their fear and worry? Their minds are out of joint and hinged and unfit for the work of today because they are divided between looking forward to the future, anticipating all sorts of evils and misfortunes, and looking backward to the past, regretting whatever they had or had not done. One of the saddest things in my work is the cry of unhappiness that comes to me from people who have lost their courage and ambition. They write me that they have ruined their careers and that all they can do now is to live on in a very hopeless and unhappy way. "Oh, if I hadn't quit in a moment of discouragement," they wail. "If I hadn't yielded to homesickness and left college, if I had only stuck to my trade, to my law practice, to my engineering work a little longer until success came to me, if I had only kept on, how different things would be today. But I lost heart, got blue and discouraged, and decided to try something easier. I have never been happy or satisfied with myself since I played the coward and turned back. But it is too late to make a change. There are millions of people in inferior or mediocre positions today who might be doing big things had they not yielded to discouragement at the start and ruined the promise of their lives. 9/10 of the men and women in the Great Failure Army are there because they were not prepared to meet obstacles, setbacks, and were frightened when they confronted them. They didn't have the vision that sees beyond obstacles and holds on in spite of unexpected difficulties, disappointments, and reverses. Some people are always at home to the blues. They are, as Carlyle says, rich in the power to be miserable. I know a woman whose mind is so adjusted to despondency and discouragement that a very little thing brings on a fit of the blues. She seems to be always ready to receive the whole blue family, and the first one that gets admission to her mind drags in his relatives. Discouragement, despondency, despair, fear, worry, and all the rest. They hold her in thrall for days together, driving out everything else, all happiness, courage, confidence, her very sanity. Indulgence in the blues, in morbid, despondent moods, is dangerous to character development and success. After a while it becomes a settled habit, a disease, and every little setback, every little disappointment throws the sufferer off his balance, kills his enthusiasm and his zest for work, lowers his efficiency, and, for the time being, his ability. In the end it acts like creating paralysis and robs him of all initiative, all power and energy, all desire even to do. I am acquainted with a man whose habitual despondency has starved and stunted his whole life. He is a striking illustration of the destructive power of unhappy thoughts. He gives one the impression of great possibilities never expressed. His forces are shut up within him. He is always full of fear, worry, and anxiety. Discouragement envelops him like a mantle. His attitude, his manner, his expression, his speech all indicate a shrinking and shriveling and impotence, which is due to his unfortunate moods. He is discontented, restless, unhappy, suffering from the sense of a thwarted ambition, and although he has worked very hard all his life, his morbid mentality and discouraged outlook have cut down his efficiency more than 50% and left him way behind where a man of his natural ability should be. One of the marks of a strong soul, one who's anchored in faith, is the ability to conquer discouragement, melancholia, the blues, all tendencies to cowardice and self-pity, no matter what happens, what obstacles or trials push such souls back or for a time press them down. They never lose hope or give way under disappointments and failures. It is not that they do not feel those things, but that they will not suffer them to turn them aside from their purpose, to defeat their ambition. Now the greatest obstacles to our success are in our minds, and there is no one so weak that he cannot overcome the most destructive enemy thoughts by the application of mental chemistry, that is, by calling to his aid the anecdotes for the enemy thoughts, and training his mind to face the light instead of the darkness. A discouraging, despondent thought can instantly be neutralized by a courageous, hopeful thought, just as an acid can instantly be neutralized by an alkali. The mental law is as scientific as the physical. We cannot hold to opposite thoughts in the mind at the same time. One neutralizes or drives out the other. We can always crowd out a negative, destructive fear thought by persistently holding in mind its opposite, a positive, courageous, constructive thought. Wishing to keep up courage is no mere figure of speech, said William James, the great psychologist. On the other hand, sit all day in a moping posture, sigh and reply to everything in a dismal voice, and your melancholy lingers. That is, by our thoughts and acts, we can draw to ourselves courage or discouragement. In other words, we can change our mental attitude as we will, and to change our thought is to change our condition. For instance, if you are looking for a job and don't find one, if you have had reverses and don't know where your next dollar is coming from, if you are a round peg in a square hole, if you have made mistakes, if for any reason you are discouraged and tempted to retreat before the enemy, instead of going about with a defeated, gloomy, despondent air, turn about face at once and assume the attitude of a victor in life. Say to yourself, God did not create any man to be a failure. He gave to all his children qualities that command success, each in his own field. All we need is to use them. I am success organized because I partake of the attributes of the Creator of the universe, the Omnipotent One. I will now use the divine power within me to do the thing I want to do, to get the position I desire, to satisfy all my needs. Failure cannot come near me. I am a success now because I am one with all power. Resolutely hold this mental attitude, and you will be surprised to find what courage it will give you, and how your difficulties will wilt before it. General Fox says that a lost battle is a battle you think you can't win. Multitudes of battles have been won by the persistent determination of a single general who had not given up hope when all others had. You are beaten. This army is not beaten, has ever been the reply of great generals to the discouraged one who wanted to give up the battle. Has lost. It is the Joyfers, the Fox, the Grants, the men of indomitable faith and courage, who have ever won victory from defeat. All down through history, glorious victories have been won, not by masses of men, but by single individuals who had superb courage, a mighty faith in themselves and in their undertaking, an unflinching determination to succeed. In innumerable instances, such brave souls had saved the day when their comrades had given up because they saw nothing but defeat, where the will to conquer had seen only victory. There is somebody not far from you at this moment, my doubting, discouraged friend, who could step into your place and command victory with the resources which you think so inadequate for the work you have to do. There is somebody who has no more ability than you have, who could see an unusual opportunity in the situation which you find so hopeless, so discouraging. A great scientist said that when he encountered what seemed an unconquerable obstacle, he invariably found himself upon the brink of some important discovery. The time above all others when it is most important for a man to hold fast to his faith and courage is when the way is so dark that he cannot see ahead. If you push on toward your goal when everything seems going against you, when doubt and discouragement are doing their best to make you give up, turn back, turn coward and quitter, then is the time when you are closer to victory than you dream of. If you never lose your conviction in your divine God-given power to win out in spite of handicaps or any obstacles that may rise in your path, nothing can defeat you, because you are in conscious partnership with omnipotence. What am I? I am the great paralyzer of ability, the murderer of aspiration and ambition, the destroyer of energy, the killer of opportunity. I am the cause of more suffering, more human misery and loss, more tragedies and wretchedness than any other one thing. I have cursed more human beings, wrested the development of more fine ability, strangled more genius, and stifled more talent than anything else in the world. I have shortened vast multitudes of lives and sent more people to the insane asylum, to crime and suicide than men dream of. I cause chemical changes in the brain which cripple efficiency and ruin careers. I deprive human beings of more things that are good for them, things that fit their nature, and that they were intended to enjoy than any other one agent. I cause men and women to wear poor, shabby clothes, to look dejected and forlorn, when it is the right of every human being to look up, to be well-dressed, attractive, and happy. I shut out the sun of hope and cause men to see everything in a distorted light, because I make them look on the shadow side of things. I devitalize people and make chronic invalids of men and women who should be enjoying perfect health. I am the devil's most effective instrument. If he can once get the bare suggestion of me into the human consciousness at the psychological moment, he can work destruction to the most ambitious, the greatest genius. I starve and stout minds and keep vast multitudes of people in ignorance. I usually attack a man when he is down, when things have gone wrong, and he is feeling blue, when he is tired, fatigued, devitalized. I find an easy entrance to his mind, because then his courage is not so keen, his brain is not so alert, and he has less dare in his nature. I find that the best time to work on my victims is in the afternoon. In the morning men are too vigorous mentally, have too much vitality and energy, too much courage to give unto me, but along in the afternoon, when the body and brain begin to weary of work, and the whole man feels a bit fagged, I can tackle the great mental scheme which was in the forefront of the brain in the forenoon, when the faculties were clean cut, and unless my victim is alert, I soon have him under my control. I am the greatest human deceiver. Once I get into the mind, I can make a giant believe he is a pygmy and of no account. I can cut down his self-respect until in his own estimation he is a very ordinary man. I have a twin brother, Dot, who's called the Great Trader. He is always ready to help me to finish my little game. We work together, and when under our control it is impossible for a man to be resourceful, original, or effective. I creep into a man's mind after he has resolved to branch out on new lines, to step out from the beaten path and blaze his own way, and weaken his ardor, dampen his enthusiasm, and make him feel inefficient and helpless. I whisper in his ear, "Go slow, better be careful." Many abler men than you have fallen down trying to do that very thing. It is not the time to start this thing. You had better wait. I haven't a single redeeming thing in my nature, and yet I have more influence with the human race than has any one of the finer, nobler qualities which help to bring man up to the height of his possibilities. I am Discouragement. Chapter 11. Make your subconscious mind work for you. When all men know how to make the subconscious work for them, there will be no poor people, none in distress or suffering, in pain or ill health. No one will be unhappy. No one will be a victim of thwarted ambitions. Your subconscious mind is like a garden, and you must be very careful what you plant there. Every thought, every emotion, every suggestion is a seed planted in the subconscious soul, and will bring you a harvest like itself. It doesn't matter what kind of thought seeds you plant, whether poverty or prosperity, failure or success, happiness or misery, you will reap a harvest in kind. If you impress vividly, intensely, and persistently upon the creative mind in the great within of you, your determination to be what you long to be, if you register your vow to succeed in doing what you long to do, and do your level best to actualize your longings, nothing in the world can stand in the way of your success. Every great inventor, every great discoverer, every great genius has felt the thrill of the divine inward force, that mysterious power back of the flesh, but not of it, which has come to his aid in working out the device, the discovery, the book, the painting, the great musical composition, the poem. Whatever he was trying to create or discover, I predict that within the next 25 years the average man, through his knowledge of the infinite power and possibilities of the subconscious mind, that mysterious force in the great within, will be able to accomplish more than the greatest minds of all time have ever dreamed of doing. Science has revealed the mechanism of the body and mastered the secrets of its marvelous construction and action. But the mystery of mind is as yet but dimly understood. Very few have even a faint realization of its immense hidden powers. The body becomes unconscious in sleep, and all its voluntary activities cease. But the mind, what does it do when the body sleeps? We know it does not sleep, for when the body is wrapped in slumber, the memory and imagination slip out of their house and go where they will. They wander in scenes of the past, or they project themselves into the future. Now they are visiting in California, now in London, now in Paris, now there among the stars. What embodiment do they assume, or do they take visible form? They certainly seem to be completely independent of the body during sleep. The new psychology explains the mystery of mind in a very simple way. It claims that that part of the mind which continues active when we sleep is that marvelous force in the great within of us which, understood and rightly used, will enable man to reach the heights of his limitless possibilities. We know that we are tapping a new source of power. When we can do this intelligently, scientifically, we shall all be performing what hitherto have been regarded as miracles. We are just beginning to realize that the subconscious mind is the channel by which we connect with infinite supply, with the great creative processes of the universe, that through it man can tap the infinite mind and accomplish things that will dwarf to insignificance achievements that now excite our wonder and admiration. Everything, so far as results are concerned, depends upon the degree of intelligence and conscious purpose with which we use the subconscious mind, for it is forever occupied registering on the invisible creative substance your every thought, emotion, desire, wish, or feeling. It never sleeps, but is incessantly working on the suggestions it receives from the conscious or objective mind. Your habitual thought, your convictions, your visions, your dreams, your beliefs are all impressed upon it, and will ultimately be expressed in your life. In other words, your subconscious mind is your servant, and proceeds instantly, without quibbling, without questioning, no matter whether it is a big thing or a little thing, whether it is right or wrong, to obey the order, to follow the suggestion you give it. For instance, when you want to take an early train, or to get up in the middle of the night for some purpose, when you haven't been accustomed to do so, and you say to yourself, or hold the thought in mind before dropping to sleep, I must wake up in time to get that train in the morning, or I must get up at 1 o'clock tonight. You are sure to awaken at almost the exact time you register, when perhaps you haven't been awake at that hour before in a year. You have no alarm clock. No one calls you. What wakes you up at just the right time? You probably never asked yourself the question or thought about it, but it was that little faithful subconscious servant who was on the watch for you. You slept. A similar thing is true of our appointments, making dates or engagements for some time in the future. You agree to meet a man tomorrow or Sunday next week at a certain place and hour. You don't make any written record of it, and the thing passes out of your mind. But when the time comes round, you are reminded of your engagement. From long experience, I know that something inside of me will bring every engagement I make to my consciousness in time for me to attend to it. I don't keep thinking of it all the time, not at all. I file it away in the within of me as I would file a business letter in my office for future reference. Then I dismiss it from my thought, knowing that it will be taken care of at the proper time. The trained man learns to commit all sorts of things to his subconscious secretary, knowing from experience that it will serve him faithfully, not only in comparatively small things, such as awakening him at any desired hour in the night or early morning, constantly reminding him of his engagements, but also in the serious problems of life. Edison says that when he is right up against a great problem in his work and has no idea in the world how to solve it, he simply sleeps over it. And many a time he wakes up in the morning to find his problem solved. It has been worked out for him while he slept in ways which he never dreamed of. The details of various inventions have been completed for him in this way. I know a great many business and professional men who do as Mr. Edison does when serious problems confront them. They sleep on them before they make any decision. In fact, it is the commonest thing in the world, when we are considering some serious problem, for all of us to say, I must sleep over that matter before deciding. It is so important. What does sleeping over such a matter mean? We may not understand or be able to explain, but what it really means is this. Your subconscious mind takes up the problem at the point where your conscious mind left it when you went to sleep, and in the morning you will find that it has been thought out for you. Your subconscious wisdom has entered into the transaction, given you the benefit of its advice, and enabled you to make the right decision. When all men know how to make the subconscious work for them, there will be no poor people, none in distress or suffering, in pain or ill health. No one will be unhappy, a victim of thwarted ambitions. We shall know then that all we have to do to make our dreams come true, to be prosperous and happy, is to give our invisible secretary the right instructions and follow this up with the necessary effort, establishing in your subconscious mind the things that you want to come true, that you are ambitious to attain, impressing upon it the ideal of the man or woman you long to be, is the first step toward achievement. Hold the conviction in your consciousness that your own is already headed your way. Work for it confidently in the realization that you can draw from the creative energy of the universal mind anything you desire, and it will surely come to you, because you will thus start the process of creation in the great within of you, consciously or unconsciously put in motion. These are the initial steps that have led to the production of every great work of art and genius in the world. They were adopted in the production of our railroads, our ships, our homes, our great monuments and buildings, our cities, our telegraph, telephone, and wireless systems, our airplanes, and all the marvels of modern inventions. Edison says he is only a medium for transmitting from the great cosmic intelligence and energy, which fill the universe, a few of the infinite number of devices which are destined to emancipate human beings from every form of drudgery. He believes that the best things he has given to the world have been merely passed along through him to his fellow men from the infinite source of all supply, while the subconscious mind is all-powerful in working out the pattern or idea we give it. Of itself it does not originate, so it will make all the difference in the world to you what sort of material you give your subconscious mind to work on. You can make it an enemy or a friend, for it will do the thing which injures you just as quickly as the thing which blesses you, not through malice, but because it has no discriminating power any more than the soil in which the farmer sows his seed. If the farmer should make a mistake and sow thistle seed instead of wheat, the soil doesn't say to him, "My friend, you have made a mistake. You have been sowing thistle seed instead of wheat, so we will change the law so that you may get what you thought you were going to get." No. The soil will always give us a harvest like our sowing. If we sow thistle seed, it will be just as faithful in producing thistles as it will in producing wheat or cabbages or potatoes. We sow the seed, and nature gives us a corresponding harvest. That is the law on the physical plane. It is exactly the same on the mental plane. The subconscious mind is like the soul, passive. The objective mind uses it, gives its commands or suggestions, which it carries out according to their nature. That is, the objective or conscious mind sows the seed in word, motive, thought, or act, and the subconscious mind gives us back our own, always the thing that corresponds to what we impressed on it. In other words, the subconscious mind has no choice but to follow the lead we give it. Hence, how important it is that our instructions to this invisible servant should be for our good and not for our harm, that we should saturate it, not with the things we do not want, the things we hate and fear and worry about, but the things we long for and are striving to attain. If you are working hard and yet not progressing toward your ideal, If you are in poverty and wretchedness, though constantly struggling to get away from those conditions, you are not obeying the law which governs the subconscious. Your thought is at fault. You are thinking poverty, thinking failure. Your mind is filled with doubts and fears. You are working against the law instead of with it. You are neutralizing all your efforts by your wrong mental attitude. Some people, by their indomitable faith and self-confidence, get hold of the dormant powers of the great within of themselves and unconsciously work with the law which governs them. Wherever a man or a woman is doing unusual things, struggling heroically to accomplish some great purpose, you find one who consciously or unconsciously is obeying this law by making tremendous demands upon the subconscious, by registering his life purposes with such tremendous intensity and working so persistently, so confidently, along that line that his purpose is unfailingly carried out. Luther Burbank, for example, has done and is doing tremendous things in the plant world because he makes tremendous demands upon the mighty agent within his subconscious mind or self. He does not neutralize the demands by doubts and fears as to whether they will be carried out or not. He makes his demands, gives his orders persistently, emphatically, with vigor and determination, and they are faithfully executed by the same means, consciously or unconsciously used. Madame Curie has made some of the most remarkable discoveries in the scientific world. We can all accomplish our ends, attain our life ambition by doing as they and all other great achievers are doing, working with law. We are not, as we were taught to believe in the past, so many separate little bits of mind thrown off into space to struggle for ourselves. We are all a part of the infinite mind, the cosmic intelligence and energy of the universe. We are the creation of the one supreme mind which called all things out of the unseen, and since the created must partake of the qualities of the Creator, man must partake of the qualities of omniscience, of omnipotence, of the supreme mind that gave man dominion over the earth and everything on it. This means that we are really, so far as this earth is concerned, in partnership with God, that we are co-creators with the great creative intelligence which is everywhere active in the universe. The marvelous accomplishments of man within the past few centuries can only be accounted for through his cooperation with his Creator. It is the Spirit of God and man working in harmony with the Spirit of God and the great cosmic intelligence of the universe which has made possible within the past half-century achievements in science and invention, in discovery that our ancestors would have ridiculed if anyone dared to suggest them as possibilities, as the imaginings of the insane, wireless telegraphy and telephony, the automobile, the airplane, the harnessing of electricity to do the work in our factories, in our homes, the reconstruction of the body by great surgeons, the discoveries in astronomy, cables under oceans connecting the ends of the earth, the construction of railroads under rivers and under the streets of our teeming cities, the works of scientific men in every field of the great agriculturists, horticulturists, and naturalists, and the great animal breeders who are doing in the animal world what the Burbanks are doing in the plant world. All these things are the results of man's reaching out into the great creative energy and in cooperation with omnipotence molding it to his purposes. The dictum of science is that nature unaided fails. In other words, man is God's working partner on this earth, his work being to lift everything upon it, including man himself, to the highest possibility of the divine plan. There is a power in man back of the flesh which, working with the divine cosmic intelligence, will enable him to do things that at present we can hardly conceive of. Nothing we can imagine or dream of will be impossible of achievement, because we are a real part of the creative power which performs miracles throughout the universe. That is, apparent miracles, for everything follows a law which is never violated in order to perform what seem to us miracles. In the consciousness of the mighty possibilities of the subconscious mind to tap the great universal mind lies the secret of infinite creative principle, of limitless power. There are powers in your subconscious mind which, if aroused and utilized, would help you do what others tell you is impossible, your ideal, your heart's desire. However unattainable it may seem at present, is a prophecy of what will come true in your life if you do your part. It is only in our extremities that we touch our real power, that we unconsciously have recourse to the great within. There are multitudes of people in the failure army today, with scarcely energy enough to keep them alive, who have forces slumbering deep within themselves which, if they could only be awakened, would enable them to do wonderful things. The great trouble with most of us, even those who have studied along this line, is that our demands upon ourselves are so feeble. The call upon the great within of us is so weak and so intermittent that it makes no vital or permanent impression upon the creative energies. It lacks the force and persistency that transmute desires into realities. When we realize that it is through our subconscious selves and the great within of us that we make wireless connection with the all-supply, with all possible joy and satisfaction, that it is here the great creative processes which make our dreams come true are started. It seems strange that we don't use this great force to better advantage. When the necessary conditions are fulfilled, the law that governs the subconscious operates, unerringly work with the law instead of against it, and nothing can hinder your success. In other words, let your subconscious mind help instead of hinder you. Give it the right thought, the right instruction, the right ideals to work on. Give it success thoughts instead of failure thoughts, bright, cheerful, hopeful thoughts instead of gloomy, discouraging ones. Never hold a thought that does not correspond with your ideal or ambition, no matter what conditions are. What obstacles stand in your way? Persist in vividly visualizing your success, never letting a doubt or fear thought come between you and the confident belief that you will get the thing you long for and are working for with all your heart. And you will be amazed at what your faithful secretary, working in harmony with creative intelligence, will do for you. The interior creative forces are more active during the night than in the daytime, and are especially susceptible to the suggestions they receive before we fall asleep. During sleep, the conscious mind is not active, and consequently, the subconscious mind operates uninterruptedly, without any of the objections or hindrances which it is constantly bringing up during the day. Therefore, it is of the greatest importance that you give the subconscious the right message, the right model on which to work during the night. Do this before you drop to sleep, and it will work for the attainment of your ambition, your desire, all night. Never allow yourself to fall asleep in a doubting, despondent mood. Do not hinder the operation of the creative intelligence at any time by doubt or fear. Doubt is the great enemy which has neutralized the efforts and killed the success of multitudes of people. Live always in the consciousness that you are a success in whatever you are trying to do, and the creative processes within you, faithfully working according to the model you give them, will produce whatever you desire